Alrighty, folks, welcome to the Tuesday Coffee Chat, first Tuesday Coffee Chat with Jack Spirko from the Survival Podcast, John Willis from Special Operations Equipment. He and I apparently coordinated our costumes today. Tell us about this shirt. John, tell us about this shirt.
I've got two feeds. I've got something going on.
Oh, you got an echo on? Okay.
Yes, I do. Let me.
There's two Nicoles.
Okay. There was two of you. This shirt is honor of Pride Month. I think I just closed myself out. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
Okay, here I am. Okay.
Here I am.
It's instead of June, I like Goon. It's Goon 4th, Goon 5th. Pride shirt, right? Prideful all year. This is my Pride shirt. I've got some friends that are gay and lesbian, and they don't do the, oh my God, it's Pride Month, right? Because the people I know, I don't care who you sleep with or what you do. What we have in common is we all raise our families, and we all believe in personal rights, and we all, for the most part, run businesses, right? So I just did this shirt as something different. It's got the American flag. This is my Pride shirt, God, Country, Family, Guns. And we sold out of them within about 2 hours of having them.
That's awesome. Pride Month used to be fun when I was a teenager. It was just a big parade in New York.
Well, what did we not have now? Somebody told me last night that June used to be something. I don't remember what it was. Father's Rights Month or something. There was something that I had never even heard of.
Huh.
Well, let's talk about father's rights, because we didn't know exactly where we'd open, and that's a good one. I have a number of friends who are awesome fathers. They love their kids. They want to be there for them. And they made the wrong choice in who they married. So that was a bad fatherly mistake. And have subsequently gotten divorced. And it's turned into this fight where mother gets custody, addicted to drugs. Father is clean and sober and working. And it's an 18-year or, up until their 18-year fight to keep the kids in their house. Anybody else hear those stories from your friends?
Many of them. I have clients constantly that are on our videos talking about that. I've also heard that most of the people that rule over that are not actually judges, and that there is a monetary compensation for them to rule in that manner, as in the child support that is paid, they actually get part of that money. For instance, I pay $2,500 a month for my son in San Diego, and his mother receives $1,100 of the $2,500. And I said, this can't be right. And in asking over and over, that is the actual fact. She had showed me the checks that she is receiving from the state of California, I believe it's from San Diego County. 3 times the deputy has walked in here and served me paperwork to go to court here. And my attorney, represents me. Dana comes in, and the judge says, why is Mr. Willis here in court? Because there is a direct deposit from the bank across the street. Tennessee says that they have the money and have sent it to San Diego, but San Diego didn't process. That happened 3 times. I have all the receipts from the auto debit coming out of my bank account, and the judge is like, this is absolutely ridiculous. California stuff is so messed up. And out of that $2,500, my ex-wife and child receives $1,100. Where does all that other money go? And how many people are paying those amounts?
So I have a friend who his daughter is now over 18. He and the mother were never married. Just she got pregnant and there was a child. And they agreed to an amount he would pay her every month, and who gets the child when, together mutually. And the state of Oregon sued him for child support.
Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, and they went to the judge, and he was like, listen, they ended up on the news over it. Listen, we have this agreement. I pay her more than you're asking me to pay her directly. There's no fight to have here.
Yes.
But they, without her filing anything, the state just went in and tried to get in there and force a payment agreement. And the only reason that they did not end up with that happening and those fees coming out is they went on the news. Yes, and finally, the state, you embarrassed the state. The state's like, oh, whoops.
That's the one thing they can't handle is being publicly embarrassed. That's about the only thing that works on a pushback. But I mean, this can all be summed up with the phrase I've used from a stupid movie for 15 years to explain this. Upgrade going to get his money.
Money, yes.
That's all it comes down to. It's just money. Your kids are money to the state. They want them in school because every butt in a seat is a dollar sign to an administrator of that school. The family court system is completely stacked against the father because the father is the one that in general makes the most money, and it's easy to vilify the father as being deadbeat dad or whatever, no matter what he's doing. If you look at the foster system and the CPS system, I just ran a rewind on that. It is a predatory system that literally is abducting children. I'm sure at some times a CPS agent goes into an actual home where a child's actually being abused, and as shitty as that system is, that kid is better off. But I don't think it's the majority. And those systems are inherently corrupt in that the judges and the attorneys are in cahoots with each other, and it's a separate, and it's the same thing John was saying about child support. It is a separate court system. A family court system does not work the way the normal court system does. It's absolutely disgusting. And I had a URL up here. I learned about this organization before there was much of an internet. Fathersforkids.com. Any father in shit problems with this needs to get in touch with this organization. They're very helpful. I found out about it because I had a guy working for me. Was a general labor guy back in the 90s. I think I was paying him like $8 an hour or something like that to dig ditches. He got a little bit of overtime every week. Maybe he works 50 hours. His child support order was something like $250 a week. Mm-hmm. He literally he was sleeping in his car. By the time he paid taxes, he was barely able to like eat off the dollar menu to survive. And this wasn't a guy that like he came on bad times and then his income went down. This was always... That's just this guy. He's just a guy that never made a lot of money. So he didn't have like a high income history that went down. And the judge basically told him he didn't care. I don't care. This is how much you have to pay. And it's supposed to be based on a percentage of income maximum cap. Well, it wasn't. And the judge just said, I don't care. Like that was literally the response. I don't care. So we got in touch with these folks. They got a pro bono attorney on his side. And all of a sudden, the judge cared.
Suddenly they care.
Suddenly they cared. And I think it was more what John said. More like, oh, well, this could be a much bigger public issue. It wasn't really direct legal pushback. It's like, we're going to use the legal pushback, and then we're going to go this route. And all of a sudden, they actually went under the cap, which was still hard for the guy, but at least it was following their own, I think, rules. And this is a chronic problem. And it's this, it's part of this whole architecture of all this destruction that they're doing of society is to make the male disposable and then claim that the male is privileged at the same time. Women don't fight our wars, not in conscription, right? I know we haven't had a draft since 75 or something like that, but for the entire history of this country up to that point, a man was disposable, could be drafted at any time in the military service, sent off to die. Fuck you, right? Women have always been a protected class, even when they have had certain things put on them as restrictions of their lives that shouldn't have been there. They were still a protected class. So we created a protected class, a completely disposable class, and the disposable class is the enemy. And then just repeat that pattern through every form of divide, race, income, just typical class warfare, and anything they can do to keep the peasants from getting the pitchfork people and the pitchfork people and the torch people together to storm the castle. As long as we're fighting each other, as long as we destroy the ability of a person to earn enough money, to have enough wealth, to actually create a fortress around their life, as long as we do that, we can get away with anything they want. And tell me it hasn't fucking worked perfectly.
And now, like they don't like publicity, but they will take it personal, right? When you push back, They will take it upon themselves to go through your social media. They will report you to the IRS. They will report you to zoning. They will report you to business licensing. They will do everything in their power personally to make your life miserable because they take it personal. That's how they do that. I was home 4 weeks in custody of the halfway house. So I'm still in Federal Bureau of Prisons custody, and I'm in child support court, and I'm working 2.5, 3 part-time jobs. And the judge said, I have to pay $2,500 a month. I'm like, Your Honor, I don't make $1,100 a month. I have check stubs. He said, well, you ran this company, and I know you're going to restart this company. and you made this much money, and you have the potential to again make this much money. And they assigned $2,500 right then. I was in arrears hundreds of thousands of dollars making the payments just when I was able to make the payments. And that still went on until he was 18 years old.
Yeah, that's
he was
terrible.
by the way, he was 2.
Yeah, that's a long time, John.
Yeah.
It's a very long time. Well, so I want to go back on something Jack was talking about, which is making the male in our society disposable. Because my as a perspective of a strong woman who has not chosen the best partners in the past in this regard, I was running a homestead by myself for many years. I was responsible, for like an adult for paying for things and whatever. And when Tactical moved into the cabin on my property and went also all in because we run the homestead together, I experienced for the first time what it's like to have 2 functioning adults running a homestead. And I can tell you that we do divide things a lot along what would be traditional gender roles. I cook more than he cooks. He's like busting ass out in the pasture more than I am dealing with sheep things and that sort of heavier lifting stuff. Works really well. That's my perspective. And I can tell you that I was able to hold it together by myself. And when I hear women say, but I can't do it by myself, I'm like, you can. You just have to adjust what you're doing and have it fit your goals. But I can also tell you when you have a second person involved in building sort of that homestead situation or a life that is functional, man, it's way better. I don't think men are disposable at all. And it pisses me off to watch the sort of the personality of the man being portrayed as like this stupid idiot who's not good for anything and is just a slob and blah blah blah. That's what you see on the TV commercials. Like a man can't clean a kitchen sink. Like yes they can.
Yeah,
yes,
look at every sitcom, every TV commercial, especially a white man, right?
Yeah.
Is just a complete bumbling moron that has to be constantly corrected by generally a left-leaning female character, right? And they always have that left-leaning female character in every show. Even The Simpsons has Lisa, right?
Simpsons like and Family Guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You have to have this thing that corrects the stupid man, and don't think that that's just a coincidence. Don't think that's not a part of programming. Like I've talked about mind control and how like the reason you better learn how to use AI is because your competitors are, and your enemy's going to use it. And the way you do mind control on an individual is you find any single thing in their belief system that you can begin to erode. And you don't try to take it all at once. You erode just a tiny piece of it. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can be completely unrelated to your goal. If you can start to, as a source, erode a belief system, you create a vacancy. Once you create that vacancy, you start filling the vacancy with the information you want them to have, and you do it incrementally over time. And that's why they can put somebody in a room and 90 days basically convert them into like your own little drone with mind control. Now, how do you scale that, right? You do it with mass media. And why the hell do you think when a group of executives sit down at NBC or CBS or whatever and talk about the new season, they call it programming? You think that's a coincidence? And it's not. It's programming. Programming is what you do to a computer. In your brain is a 3-pound organ. And that is the most powerful computer in the world. It's still subject to programming. And the best programming is not felt by the machine as it's being programmed. It simply slowly alters its processes. And so all of this shit about men being disposable, men being morons, men being stinky, like there's nothing we can do right. We're useless, but we should go fight your wars for you, right? That's all part of that programming, but it's not just because they want the male to be disposable. It's because they want complete disruption in society, because then they can sit over it and say, see, you need us.
So here's an interesting comment.
Imagine a society with no major problems.
Yeah.
Like, let's say no problems. Not perfect, not nirvana, not utopia, just no major problems. Pretty much everybody that needs to eat can eat. Pretty much people get along. They don't hate each other because of their color, sex, orientation, any of that shit. People that work do well. People that don't work don't do so well. But there's no major problems. You're not going to war with any other country. What fucking sane person in that society go, we need some more government here? Well, if you're a government and you're an organism, because government is an organism, and you want to grow, you thrive on problems. So think of like certain bacteria, especially dangerous bacteria, will literally alter their environment so that they can grow and metastasize throughout the other organism they're infecting. There's your government. It modifies its environment so that it can grow and reproduce. And we're just talking about one piece of how they do that right now. There's 1,000 ways they do that.
So I'm highlighting this comment because it's germane. One of the first things I stopped when I got married was making jokes publicly aimed at my husband. Once you stop, you realize how pervasive it is. And that's the programming working on us. Like the thing about the media programming and making the male into this useless lump is men have allowed themselves to be made into useless lumps. So they program their own brain. They have this idea that that's acceptable and that they don't need to excel. And women are also programmed to accept that in their partners.
Yeah.
It's division. It's on purpose, because when you can break up the family union, you have two people. One has to pay the system, and the system doles out to the other person. It's the same thing when a woman gets on welfare. The first thing they do is the man can't live at the house, right? People even come over to make sure the man is not staying at the house. It's fine that other men are at the house.
Oh, that's fine.
Just not that man.
That one,
It's just like church. Government doesn't like church. Government doesn't like a strong family model, whether you go to church or not. I don't go to church. Lightning would strike me if I stepped in church. But if you follow the guidelines, the framework of religion, it holds society together. And when society is together and strong, you need less government. But they can't have that. It's the same thing with, it's always husband, wife first, kids second. If the husband and wife aren't strong together, how are you going to raise strong kids? You know, I heard Jack say that over and over, and I thought about it, and I'm like, holy shit, that is what's missing. We have to be together before we can raise these children. And that just holds true. It is about breaking up the family union. When you are strong, people are upset about that. And it also comes down to self-talk. Do you make fun of yourself? Stop that shit, right? Stop it. That's not okay. You are weakening yourself. If you are around people, you will never see my wife and I frustrated at each other in public. It will never be brought up. When I get together with friends, we don't discuss how our spouses are an issue or the problem, right? If you get around a dude and he data dumps you and just downloads all the shit in his life that's messed up, stay the fuck away from that person.
No, that's a virus for your computer.
Yeah, it contaminates you.
That shit off.
Yes, everybody is contagious. You are going to catch something from every single person you come in contact with. So you better be damn sure that you want what you're about to catch from them. Stay away from them. Get around stronger people. Even if it's just do what you believe in your heart is right, and the right people will show up. When you change your success, those people that used to be friends are typically not happy for you because to their spouse, you look like you're doing something he or she is not when he's playing video games. Stay away from those people.
Yeah, because I want to hit that too. Like the way we're talking here, like it could come off to somebody that doesn't know us as like men are always right. And there's a lot of men that are morons because they've been programmed to be morons and they don't know their role. I had a conversation with my grandson recently who said something unkind to a woman. And what I said is your first role is you protect the women in your life before anything else. You protect the women in your life. And in that family relationship, when you take a wife, that wife, I know this sounds wrong, but John was hitting on it. The wife comes before your kids. You will grow old and die with your wife. If you do it right, your kids will grow up and leave the house and go have their own life. And that's your job, is to ready them for that. Doesn't mean they won't be your children anymore, but they will still be your sons or daughters, but they won't be your children because they're not children. They're not children. You need to be raising adults, not children. That's what we have. We have a freaking generation of people that are 20 to 40 years old. They're still kids. And a lot of it is because the man's either absent or has no idea what he's doing. And it's not like there's guys that are killing themselves working. They're never home, but then they're absent in the life. They have to find that balance, right? And you have to be that strong model. Like if you're a dude and you have a daughter, this sounds weird until you understand what I'm explaining it. When I explain it, you should be dating your daughter as she comes of age. And I don't mean actually dating. I mean mock dating. I mean, you should take your daughter to lunch and you should treat her the way you would want a young man to treat her with respect and decency. So she has something to model and judge against that. And if you're not doing that, you're missing one of your key jobs in doing that. And one other thing I'll say to guys, like the guys always make these jokes about, my daughter will never date. I don't want anybody near my daughter until she's 30. But you're a fucking moron when you say that. I know you mean well, but you're a fucking moron. What you're saying is, I want my daughter, when she's 18, 19, 20 years old, to be alone and without somebody in her life to love her the way I loved her mother. That's what you're saying. There's so many ways we fuck our language up with shit like that. When people say, I want to protect property values. You know what you're saying? I want to make sure my kids can never afford a fucking house. That's what you're saying. And we need to start rewiring our minds in all of these things that we just say without thinking. I do it. John does it. Nicole does it. It's not like we don't do it too. It's just we're trying to be as acutely aware as possible of the things that we think and the things that we say. Because if you don't, you'll fall right in. It's so easy to fall in and it's hard to climb out. John was saying they're not happy for you when you change. They're the fucking crabs in the cooler. I used to work in New Orleans back when I was really young, and we used to catch crabs all day long and then go to work at night. And we had this giant 100-gallon cooler. And when you open the cooler to drop a crab in, like some of the crabs would try to bail ass out, and the other crabs would grab their fucking ass and pull them back in. Like if you have people doing that shit to you, you need to freaking cut loose of those people and bail your ass out of the cooler, because the cooler is death.
It's like that monkey trying to get that banana on that experiment. It's the same exact thing, man. We have to use strong words. You have to do strong things. You need to do difficult things, right? You have to, if you're not doing difficult things and learning new things, eyes are always watching you, right? Whether you have kids or not, even if you're completely alone when you're doing it, somebody knows that it's happening. And if you learn new things and you become better at doing difficult things, your kids are also going to lead. They're going to follow that example, right? You're not ever going to start something and be the best at it, but you can become the best at it. And you need to challenge your kids to do difficult things. Kids now can't have a conversation. If you want to test this, walk into Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, any box store, find a young person and ask them a question. Most of them will not look you in the eyes. And I'll bet you over 50% of them won't even address you. They will walk the opposite way. There is no difficulty. The only communication they know is this thing. And those are high calibrated people simply because they are at work. Imagine the people that are not at work that couldn't even get the job or bother to go to the job. And that's our fault. We have to raise those kids. You don't have kids, I'm telling you, start a business, build a life that your children want to be part of. Even if they go someplace else, right? They can still come back to that. You have 60 years to raise. You got 20 years to raise those kids. You got another 40. Well, you don't because you're an adult, but you got another 20 to set an example and build something. Who's going to take care of you once you're 60, right? We warehouse our elderly. We lock them in boxes. Nobody comes to visit them. Build a property, have housing, and have multi-generations on your property. Those kids can raise, those grandparents can raise those kids for the next generation while they run whatever that business is. But if you don't have something yourself, you've got nothing to pass to them.
Yeah. Okay, I've got something I want to bring up here. If you want to be part of the solution on the child welfare issue, this is a comment from Tennessee Permaculture. That's Mike Bertrice, Jack, in case you don't know his new username. When we fostered children, we protected them from the state, not for the state. And here's something I didn't know existed until I was faced with somebody who was in a tough family situation. There are organizations that make arrangements to foster your child completely separate from the state. They have a legal document while you go through a hard time. An example of a hard time could be you got arrested for smoking pot and you're going to jail for 3 months, and you put your child into this foster system. Their goal is it's like an alternative private one. Their goal is to keep children with their parents. And while you're in jail, the state does not want your child without a guardian. So they will put them in the foster system, and then you get out, and then you have to prove yourself to be able to get your child back. This system builds in visiting. If you are a certain religion, they will make sure your child gets to that church, and they try to keep the parents as involved with the children as possible. Another hard time could be like what Jenni's going through, where she's about to be potentially up to 3 months in a hospital getting treated for cancer. She's got a kid, right? So where does that kid go? into the foster system. That doesn't seem very, like, they don't have a great track record, but you can help by becoming a foster family in the voluntary system. And that helps maintain familial continuity, because the goal is to get the child back in a good situation and to take care of that child, as opposed to how much money can we squeeze out of this system while we're here? What can we keep for our fees? So I think it's cool that they have fostered, and I wanted to point out that that's an option. If you're like, how can I help? And you're able to foster kids. Foster them.
That's awesome. That's awesome, because a lot of these foster systems have become weaponized, just like the FBI, right? Depending what sign you had in your front yard, who works at the foster system? Mostly, it's not what is perceived to be the right? Because the right has jobs and they work, and those aren't bureaucrats, they run businesses. So that other side, just like sending your kids to government school and then wondering why your kids hate you, a lot of those people will punish your children. And a lot of those kids have shown up abducted and been rescued and recovered from sex trade multiple times. Kids that were in the foster systems multiple times have been recovered. It's terrible, crazy shit happens to these kids. And if you're not aware of it, your eyes are shut, because it is out there front and center.
Yeah.
I'm feeling an episode coming sometime in the future about private alternatives to government things, because that's one I didn't know about. I've heard of people doing things like, I have to go away, so will you take care of my kids, and making private, but I never heard of like an organization doing it. So that's an incredible one that I didn't know existed, and it's kind of my wheelhouse to know shit like that. Another one that I know exists that's a private alternative to government, the Mormon Church has their own welfare system. Like, you can go to like their food, where they do all their food prep and all, and they'll give you food for work. They'll help you find a job. You don't have to be a Mormon to go. You don't have to be part of Latter-day Saints to go. I don't know a ton about the LDS faith or anything, but I do know they have that, because I have friends that are, and they've told me about it. Right. So there's this entire parallel welfare system, but it's not, hey, we'll send you a check once a month and give you some housing. It's, we will literally give you a hand up. We will literally help you we'll introduce you to people. There's tons of people that are entrepreneurship is heavy in the Mormon faith. Heavy thing. Preparedness is a heavy thing. And what I've learned about their preparedness mindset is as much for others as it is for your own self. You need to be able to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And so we probably need to dissect and find how many of these systems exist that no one knows about, because the government certainly doesn't want you to know about it, and therefore the media doesn't want you to know about it. So I'm sure you're not going to hear a CNN report or a Fox News report. Did you know if you're out of a job that your local LDS cannery may be able to help with food and employment? You're not going to hear that. No talking head's going to come on TV and say that shit. And then I wanted to real quick rip back to what John was talking about. Somebody brought up the term nuclear family. A nuclear family is typically defined, and I don't have any problem with it, but when we add to it, it becomes what we call a corporate family. So nuclear family is mom, dad, kids, right? When I grew up, even though everybody didn't live in the same house, we very much, and thank God, because my parents sucked ass, right? We had a nuclear family. There were uncles, great uncles, aunts, literally within walking distance of the house I grew up in, even though they didn't live in the same house. And that spread out this family to where you could actually, as a kid, when you needed something that maybe your parents don't suck, but maybe sometimes you're dealing with something as a kid that a parent just they're not able to really help you with because of the relationship you have. You're always the kid. But that uncle, that grandmother, whatever, may be able to help you through it. And we've totally lost that, because like John said, we take the old people and throw them in a home, right? And we move as far away from each other as we can. And we've destroyed the economy. So a lot of times young people move because it's the only way to get any opportunity. That's why I left. As much as things suck there, the main reason I left is, well, I don't want to work third shift at Exxon, right? At a plant full of chemicals. There, I know 4 people that are in my family that got cancer from. I don't want that job, right? And that was right. That or Cressona Aluminum, like, were the 2 jobs that you could get where you could make a decent income. And then there was like a line of people waiting to get one of those jobs. Otherwise, you were working at a gas station in a coal mine or something like that. So there was no opportunity there for someone like me. So I left. Well, we've done that. Look at the country. They've destroyed opportunity everywhere they can. And it takes people like John building something like SOE in a place like Camden to restore that. but there's one John for every 20,000 drums.
Yeah, and think about what John has built in Camden, Tennessee, where the employee pool is top notch, right?
I own 52 sewing machines. I've never seen 20 of them run while being in this county. They're not here. You can come here and live like a king. You cannot come here and take someone's job. Like, you want to come here, if you've got a business and you fulfill through UPS or US Mail, you can do amazing here. What you cannot do is scale your business. They're not here. Like, all my guys that work here, I've never had a resident of this county work here that showed up more than 3 days in a row. All of my guys that work here currently are all from California. They all moved here from California. Some of them moved here specifically to come work here. Most of my guys. All of my ladies that work here, one of them I think lives in the county. The rest of them drive between 45 minutes and an hour to get here.
You know, that's the immigrant phenomenon. That's when people are willing to disrupt their lives for an opportunity, they will make the most of it. That's why people come here dirt poor from Thailand or something like that. And in one generation, they're multimillionaire real estate investors. Because think of what it takes to be like, I know there's opportunity in America, but I'm going to and think about the family bonds that like that particular group, like the Southeast Asian communities are all, I'm going to leave my family. Where the family's so large that, like in Vietnam, they literally start naming aunts by numbers, like Auntie 8 or Auntie 12, because that's how big. But you don't want to lose track of that's a family member. And for that person, that's, you know, either individual or nuclear family to say, we will leave this place, take the little bit of shit we have and go roll the dice in a country thousands of miles away because we heard about it. That person is not going to fucking sit on their ass. They're going to look for anything to make it worth what they did. Now, moving from California to Tennessee is not as big a move, but it's still like I am disrupting my life. And that's why, you know, even though I talked about how everybody moves away now, it is a good thing to do if you're in a shitty place without opportunity. And sometimes, like John said, those crabs around you trying to pull you down. You have to separate. And if you're in a small ass town, that may not be so easy. You know, it may not be easy to get away from those people if you live in a place where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you look at your donut shops are typically like a lot of Vietnamese people, at least here, and you'll have 2-3 generations of family, and they'll literally sleep in the back of the donut shop.
Yes.
And as soon as that gets on the radar, the government will come in and try to shut them down and kick them out and make it difficult. What do you give a shit where those people? You know why? Because it's more tax base. It's the bureaucrats. It's the same thing with the Chinese buffets, man. You'll have them living in the back. You see it in the Mexican restaurants. But as soon as that's on that radar, they come in and try to make it difficult, and they'll chain that door closed. Everything is designed to be stacked against somebody trying to get ahead.
And the thing is, those people don't plan on living like that forever.
No, they don't.
That's the early on sacrifice. What you were just saying there about the donut shop thing reminded me of a talk that I listened to by Harvey McKay way back about a guy that came from Vietnam, and he did exactly that. His uncle basically let him work in a donut shop. He worked there for 2 years, slept in a place with his wife that took showers in the sink. 2 years in, he saved enough money. He bought the shop from his uncle. They slept in the place another 2 years, even though by then they could have got an apartment. They went out and bought a house. They leveraged that debt into the next house, and they became multimillionaire real estate investors in about 10 years. But see, what's the time preference there? The time preference that we have pushed into our brains from the time we are a little child and somebody puts sugar on a pacifier and sticks it in our beak so we'll shut up is short time preference. That's everything that we're taught. Everything we're conditioned for is short time preference. I mean, and it's worse today than it was. When I was in school, at least they did things where they would say, like, figure out how much money that an average person makes and how much that is over your life. And if you save this much, what will you have? They don't talk about shit like that anymore. Even when my kid was in school, one of the ways they kind of attacked the smoking thing, they just said, figure out how much you would save if you didn't smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and took the money and saved it for 5 years. And what would you buy with it? Right? That's at least a midterm time preference in their minds. Today, it's all, what do I get now? Video games, instant feedback. Social media, instant feedback. Right? And so as soon as you put a society into a short time preference, oh, we want to spend $10,000 a person in, free money for the COVID. Well, give it to me. Right? Give it to me. right? And they don't care that we're going to go from 20 trillion to 30 trillion dollars in debt in 2 years. Screw that. I want what I can have now. And so when someone comes to you to work for you, John, from another state, they're at least, they might not always work out because I know they don't all work out, but they're at least thinking long term. They're not thinking just now. And if you're an entrepreneur and you can't think that way, I promise you'll be bankrupt in less than 5 years, probably less than 2.
We talked about the instant gratification thing last night on the live feed. When I was young, 15 years old, 16, 17, I wanted to buy like a Ford Mustang, right? And I never saved to buy the Ford Mustang, but every Thursday when Auto Trader came out, I would spend $10 buying all the Auto Traders and then $20 buying the magazines, right? Which I never read. I spent enough on weekly publications that I could have bought the damn Mustang. But no, like, it just wasn't in my head. It's that instant gratification because we feel good when we buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're calibrated very, very low. We've got a bunch of shorts right now. Scully talking about in combat, his minimum loadout was 15 magazines. And we've got literally, I think there's 20 million views on our TikTok video of this thing and over 10,000 comments. And it's, no, combat loadout is 6 mags, 15's too much. And then you look at these people and they're kids. It's all Call of Duty. There's references to video games. People are calibrated so low. And I said, have you not ever been to a CrossFit gym? Because there's a lot of girls in there with 20-pound vest carriers with weight doing pull-ups, right?
Yep.
Have you not ever been to a marathon? My friend's wife was 365 pounds, did a 5K. 2 weeks later, she did a half a marathon at 350 pounds. But these kids are crying about 13. To give you an idea, that's 1 pound per magazine. I carry more than 10 pounds of shit in my pockets every day. It's just baffling. People are just calibrated so low nowadays. We have not made people do anything tough. We've not made them. I think every kid, high school is a good example, right? You want to get out of high school, you got to do this. They make them do these community service things. Shit, you should have to go work fast food for 6 months so that you don't want to fucking do that. That is an entry-level job. Make them swing a hammer. Make them break up whatever it is, just so you know that, number one, you're capable, and number two, you don't want to do that job.
Yep. Okay, and now for something completely different. Land homestead criteria. How important is it to live in a right-leaning / freedom-loving county, or is any county okay as long as you don't have an HOA? Who wants to go on that one?
You're going to become landlocked. I feel like I'm in a great place, and I feel it constricting. When we moved here, we had a deal to buy 160 more acres. And through some mishaps and a guy committing suicide, that didn't happen. So now I can't go anywhere else other than this 10 acres. And now the state has decided they want to make a 4-lane road out here. So we're going to lose another 100 feet of our frontage, which that beautiful hill and all those trees to where you don't see headlights and hear semi trucks, that's going to be cut away, right? So what do? If you have the ability, I would tell you even if you have to buy unimproved land, buy more land than you think you need and immediately put it in bamboo, put it in pine trees, put it in something and stagger them so you have that buffer. Yes, even though it's state land on one side, through manipulation, that can be changed. You have no control over the property you don't own. Just because it's been there 100 years doesn't mean it will be there one more year.
And buying adjacent to like state land, federal land, whatever, everybody always pushes back when I recommend that too. That is the last land that will ever be developed.
Yep.
If they do anything with it, they'll drill for oil or something like that. They're not going to put a highway through it or something like that. It's their land. They don't. And think about it this way. This is how I know it's really not, but that's how they think. This is state land. Just like they think when they're spending the tax money that it's their money. They stole it. But that's how they think. So why would I give up an easement on my land when I could take it from John? Right? That's how simple that calculus is in their mind. Right? I mean, so that's a valid thing, absolutely. And I'd say the bigger piece theory is you should look at every place there's easement. If they took double what they asked for, could you still be sheltered from them? If you can't do one of the strategies that John just gave. And, what I think really sucks about what's happening up at where John is, there's literally no reason. It's not like there's giant. I've been there. There's not giant traffic trams of traffic trying to move through that byway. They could leave that alone. There is no need to widen that road there whatsoever. I smell there's some federal grant or something where there's money available to do this.
I bet it's a community block grant or something of that nature.
And they got to do something
on low income counties as a make work project, and then they have to hire a certain percentage of people if that project even manages to happen. Because the other thing that happens on that one is they're like, it'll be $10 million to build this, and then they get to the point where they're like, okay, do it. We've allocated $10 million, and it's like, never mind, it's $25 million. You don't have enough. That's how those things go.
It's just like during COVID, they had all that money for rural areas to have better internet, right? We had one cell tower outside the door. You'd see it blinking when you walk out the door. Verizon worked very well. Now we have 7 cell towers that you see. Verizon doesn't work at all. And if you drive every half a mile, there is literally on the 69, there's 12 brand new cell towers back there. I don't know what they do because the service is complete shit now. It doesn't make any sense.
It is. I can confirm.
Yeah.
I go to Camden, and I usually will stay at an Airbnb somewhere, and I like to try different ones. And I've learned in advance to figure out the map, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get near whatever Airbnb it is, and my GPS is not going to work for whatever reason. So it's worse in your county than mine, John.
Look at California and their high-speed rail, right? $40 billion they invested, which was Nancy Pelosi's husband's company that did that high-speed rail. The rail is not connected. There has never been a train run through the rail, but they cut out all those avocado farms, all those almond farms. They eminent domained all of these farms, literally shut off their water and killed all these crops. The train has never traveled the tracks. It's not even connected.
And nobody will pay for it. And when I say pay for it, I mean a concept. I don't mean money. Like it's been paid for with money they stole. I mean, nobody that was part of that screwed it up that bad will go to jail, pay a fine, lose a job. An elected official might get voted out of office. I don't consider that punishment. They all get jobs as lobbyists to make more money. That's not punishment. Saying, John, I'm going to fire you, but I'm going to pay you 5 times as much to go work somewhere else. Not a punishment at all in any way, shape, no way that's a punishment. So there's no consequence to being wrong for the state. And that's why we have all the problems. Somebody should go to prison for misallocation of funding for that. In fact, somebody's a big ass quarrel in there. Like somebody commits an embezzlement and steals $100,000 from a public company. They go to Club Fed for 7 years minimum. But a bureaucrat misallocates $40 billion, commits theft on the land that has been in families for generations, hundreds of years. Zero consequence. And then, so when anybody says, well, we need government, I'm like, for what? For what? Why? For that? Because that's what and just take that. And these are the instances that we know about. This happens every day, 100 times a day somewhere. Every day, 100 times a day somewhere.
Your political parasites, to include both sides, they're like, why do people need AR-15s? They think they want to use them against us. Yes, they want to tar and feather you. Some of you should be hung in public for the things that have happened over the last 3, 4, 5 years. There is literally treason has been committed, and nothing will happen to them. There won't be anything done. As long as everybody is comfortable and has this thing, nobody is going to change anything.
Everybody should read the book that I have on the screen right now. 3 felonies a day. How the feds target the innocent. It's not exactly what John's and we're talking about right now, but it is the same vein. It's that most people walk around and commit federal felonies every day and they have no idea. And then they tell you, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear and shit like that. Bull, right? It's that same mindset that there's always some way for them to get what they want. And if you're too much of a problem, there's a way to get you to go away. It was somebody in the Hitler regime that said something to the effect of, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Meaning you bring me anyone that you want for us to get rid of and we'll find a way to get rid of them.
Yep. you guys should check out. I don't know what his name is. He has a YouTube channel called High Impact Flicks and another channel called Here's the Deal. We should all have that dude on. That guy should be at Self-Reliance Festival. You should check his channel out.
I'm Googling it right now. High Impact Flicks or Films?
Maybe Films. I think It's High Impact Flicks, but Here's the Deal is his other channel. And the more you have these conversations, they will turn their weapons on you. Like sooner or later, like when they start censoring like Joe Rogan, or they start censoring these other channels, and everybody's like, oh, who cares? We're only 2-3 years downstream from them, right? There will come a time, if this keeps in the same direction, where somebody knocks on my door and wants to get me for something I said on social media 2 years ago, right? They will change laws and then make them retroactive to the past.
Interesting. Back on the subject of right-leaning county or not.
We lost that, didn't we? Okay.
Oh, it's okay. I just wanted to give my 2 cents. I think it's important when you buy land to look at the structure of the county you're in, both from a land use planning standpoint, codes, all of that, by going physically into the county and finding out about that stuff. A. B, you do want to do a scale, like an assessment of how are the county commissioners voting? What is the city doing? What are they going to annex? What is the annexing process? All of those things, because you will see a trend in a county, right or left. That's not the issue. You will see a trend in the county towards instilling zoning and land use planning policies and using eminent domain for payback projects to locals. And when you see that trend, that means you're less secure. So you can make that decision with the data. The best government to get involved with, if you're going to get involved with government at all, is on that local level. So then the next question is, how can I influence this? Because we have examples here where people have gotten involved and organized and overturned regulation. But very small county, very low population, very important to be going to church every Sunday if you're going to be influential here. And you need to know that landscape.
You should also get out and talk to business owners, because what it appears to be on the front, business owners will have a different aspect. They'll have a different opinion, right? I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine who's a farmer, and he told me some things. I said, hey, we're trying to get this thing going with the sheriff to where they have a furlough, and we take some of their people for job release during the week and we train them. And the beauty of that is, while they're on probation 2-3 years after the fact, they're drug tested, right? So we have a viable employee for years after. And when I sat down with the sheriff, he said, we've discussed this, and the city council says, yeah, sounds great, but they never approve it. They never allow it. I go, well, what's the problem, right? I'll buy the bus. I'll provide the transportation. We'll provide the lunches. Like, where's the problem? And it's just always pushback. It's things are not always what they appear to be.
Okay, it's High Impact Flicks Reloaded, I think, is the channel. Let me share
his name's Brian. Brian from High Impact Flicks. Yep.
Let me add to what John was saying about all that too. Like, one of the things you have to be really careful of is you'll hear me talk about what it means to be in a county in Texas and be unincorporated and how much freedom that gives you. Okay, you need to make sure that the word I said means a thing in Tarrant County, Texas, actually means the same thing in your county, Colorado, Florida, Tennessee, whatever. Because just because it means that here doesn't mean it means that anywhere else. And then you got to be sure, even in the same state. So I never can remember the name of the damn county. It's Navarro County, where Corsicana is here in Texas. Breaks that rule even for Texas. If you go down to Navarro County, which is just an hour south of me, and you build in an unincorporated part of Navarro County, you might as well be building in downtown Corsicana. And there's an arboration there. And I'm only going to tell this story so people understand there can always be an exception. You need to find it before you commit to something.
Yes.
So in Corsicana, actually out in the county, but down in Navarro County, years and years ago, we had this idea that CERN in Switzerland shouldn't have a monopoly on research done with super colliders. So they decided they were going to build a super collider in Texas, and they wanted it close enough to Dallas, Fort Worth to get good employees and stuff like that. So they picked Navarro County. So Navarro County goes out and decides, well, shit, we're going to have all this business moving in. This is going to be a huge facility, lots of jobs, lots of people. We need to get a handle on building codes and stuff like that. We can't have people building subdivisions down here to their own accord. So what they decided was in Navarro County that if you lived out in the county, you fell subject to the regulations for Course County. And they put that in place. And I only know that I won't go long, but a really weird reason that I even know this. And so wherever you go, you, like John's saying, talk to the people that run businesses there. If you can talk to like county planners or whatever, talk to them too. If you talk to the county planning commission and they all seem like dickheads and they're not causing any trouble yet, they just hadn't figured out how.
Yeah.
Right. And they will figure out. Government is really good at one thing. This is the one thing they're best at. Using whatever power they currently have to create a new power. So even if they're restricted from a power, you have to ask how many steps to that power, right? Is it at least long enough that I'll die before they fuck it up? If it is, then you can probably move there. If you're like, they're like 2 steps from having complete total power and changing everything. If you have time, look for something else, man. And then my other strategy with this is, like John said, get more land than you can and leave trees. You need to be in the center wall. People complain about what they can see. And so this is also inherently different. What do you want to do? If you're going to have a commercial operation, you're on the radar. If you're going to be a farm, a real farm, you're on the radar. If you're a homesteader, it's pretty easy if you get a sizable chunk of land to kind of disappear. And if you don't talk about what you're doing, you're not likely to deal with a lot of people.
Fences make great neighbors. Like with that road, we were about to do a major pond project with a big, huge bulldozer. We put that on hold because I need to see where they're going to take, how much of that hill they're going to take and how much of that road we can see, because we're going to push that dirt up and make a wall so that we can't hear it, we can't see it, and they can't see us. The best thing I ever did was fence this entire property and gates and sally ports and lights and dogs. Nobody comes in here. And when they do, we know we're here. What are you doing here and why are you here? We come out very aggressive. You can tone us down through your movements, but there's no way you accidentally stumbled in here. And talking about the water rights and stuff and BLM land next to your property. A couple counties over, I got a guy I went to the gym with, and he was telling me his neighbor, because we were talking about rabbits years ago. His neighbor had a bunch of rabbits, and somebody, the Department of Making You Sad, stumbled on his property and made a big deal about these rabbits and the manure and the urine being near a waterway. Do you think anybody tested that water and said, oh, there's a protein spill here and it's making a bigger algae bloom? No, but they came in and made a huge deal, so much so that the dude got rid of the rabbits.
Yeah, they can do a lot to mess with you.
And then waterways are one of those things, it's a beautiful thing to have, but waterways and even just catchments that are going into certain water streams, they can come up with bullshit, even if it's not true. They don't have to prove it. You have to prove they're wrong if you get the opportunity, and you're usually steamrolled before you get the opportunity. Like, there's a lot of shit that I grew up being programmed to believe, like land of the free, that I don't believe anymore. No. Like, the only way we're free in this land is by seizing freedom. Being an American does not make you free. If you don't understand that, you probably need to keep listening if you can handle it. But you're not free because you're an American. You're free because you assert your freedom and you defend your freedom and you defy anybody to fuck with it. And you do that a variety of ways. It's not always a direct punch in the face. You have to think with a little bit of jujitsu mindset, like, what John was saying about bordering government lands. That's jujitsu, using the enemy against himself, right? So they don't want to mess with that. They want to keep it the way it is. So you're not going to have a developer coming in and putting condos in behind your homestead, right? Or I have a long-term listener in the audience. They're holdouts. They have a 10-acre like little farmstead. It's either Oregon or Washington. I don't remember where exactly. But a whole subdivision grew up around them. And the subdivision created an HOA. And they've been trying to force them into their HOA for as long as TSP's been around, probably longer. Mm-hmm. And all they get is husband and wife both, 4 middle fingers. You're not doing it.
Yep.
Right. But they're trying to force them in, and they've actually tried to use government, and the government's like, well, because it must be western part of either or the eastern part of either one of these states. Like, well, that's not really what we do. But, if they were closer to Portland, they may have been forced in there by now by the government. I don't know.
Find a county with a strong sheriff and get to know your sheriff. And also know that the sheriff is typically, it's an elected position. And there is always a polar opposite that wants his job. So your sheriff, who is awesome right now, might not be your sheriff, right? Also, back to the do what you believe in your heart is really the best thing for your family and your employees, and other people will show up. You can see that happening with Bear and Tag from Life Done Free and those guys. Intentional community. The right people are showing up. Mike from Forward Observer really planted that seed in my head when he was talking about area studies and stuff. Get to know the politicians. Go to your community meetings. And if you have to, run for the school board there, right? I don't want to be mayor, but I definitely want somebody who I like as the mayor. And if that person doesn't exist, maybe it is you. When you're least expected, you're elected, right? Maybe that is on you, even if it's not on your radar, or the right people show up and you can sway that vote or get out there, have dinner with your neighbors. How many people actually even know their neighbors? I'm lucky that I have a neighbor over here who is a homesteader, right? He's probably watching this right now. And those people are moving in because of the events we have here. Nicole can testify. How many people do we know that have bought property literally within 20 minutes of here? There's
I don't even know. A lot. Yeah.
I mean, we got a friend from Canada that just bought property here.
Yeah. Yep. He's going to be speaking at the next Self-Reliance Festival too. Your internet glitched out a little bit there, John, so I jumped in. But yeah, it's like doing these events. I know doing events here too has drawn people to this area. My county was just commented on in the comments as something that High Impact Flicks covered as corrupt. Yes, I know. I have
All
watched.
Government is corrupt.
So the county mayor was involved in scamming taxpayer dollars out of millions of dollars to build a senior living facility called Living the American Dream. And it was like on this horse farm where you could go retire, and they threw parties with prostitutes. That's what they really used it for. And it got exposed. And the lady who was behind the Upper Cumberland, Upper Cumberland Community Development or something, UDDC, she went to jail. Our county mayor pled out and testified against her and didn't go to jail. And of course, we had another county mayor in after that. Darn if that dude didn't run for mayor again, and within a vote or two missed it. Like, people still voted for him after he defrauded the taxpayers for millions of dollars. And his excuse was, well, I didn't really realize that's what was happening there. I was just I was tricked by this person. I'm like, well, I still don't want you in office if you can be tricked that easily into using community block grants to finance prostitution parties. It's not where I want my money going, dude. So I'm not voting for you.
Local level politics is the only thing you can actually control. We have a friend that actually was mayor here years ago in this town. And he drove up to the ball field, and his father and some people were there, and he goes, hey, did you go vote? And they're like, nah, you've got this. He's like, please go vote. He won that election by 2 votes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing that you can control.
That's literally where your vote might actually count.
Yeah. And one thing to always understand about your local government, the only thing your local government can do is make your life worse.
Yes.
There's zero pushback from local or largely even county governments. The state can and occasionally does push a little bit back on the feds. But every layer of government in your life is another layer of restriction. That's why one of the reasons I hate HOAs. I'm like, HOAs are people who are like, you know what I have? I have federal governments. I have state government. I have county government. I have local government. I just need me a 5th plank of government. I don't have enough government in my life. It would be better if I was governed harder. That's what that is.
Govern me harder, Daddy. Please.
Govern me harder, Daddy. I can't believe you haven't made.
You haven't done that shirt yet.
Because it's Bear. Bear's the one that says it. That's why I just have it.
I go way back with one of those where my ethics won't let me do it. I don't even really care for the family very much, but with all the permaculture and stuff I do, there's a concept of resistance is fertile. And the Gervais family has that. And even though I really don't care for them, I am not going to take their thing. I just,
Didn't they?
They tried to claim they own urban
permaculture?
Homesteading and a bunch of other shit, so maybe I should.
I would suspect that they're not even around anymore. Maybe they
No,
are.
Jules passed.
Yeah.
So. Maybe I should do the Resistance is Fertile shirt because
Especially now, man.
I like Star Trek and
Yeah. Well, Jack, you put the cult in permaculture, as I recall.
Yeah.
We did that shirt for the Zello channel, but you should totally do that shirt again.
Permacult, sure.
Yeah, it's permacult in big letters. So
kind of do it like the Ron Paul Revolution, where they had the love in the middle of the word and
backwards.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I can't see how many people are on here, but I mean, just ask yourself: has local government ever come to your house and said, "Hey, you're paying too much taxes. We're going to lower your tax"?
No.
Hey, your grass is cut really beautiful. You don't have to do that. Like, have they ever done anything for you other than take from you?
I will say the state of Texas right now under Abbott is trying to cut property taxes and significantly.
Good.
And the stated long-term goal is the elimination of property tax. Now, it would not eliminate local school property tax, but the elimination of the state layer of property tax completely. And it's something like $18 billion they have in surplus that they're pushing back through. And the question is how. Abbott wants to include businesses in the property tax cut, and the legislature wants to make it all personal residences. And so that's a debate they're having. But I'll friggin' take either one because the property tax I pay is stupid.
That's the division, right? It's if you work for somebody, your boss is evil.
Yeah.
And people who don't own businesses, that it's always somebody trying. I come in, I slave for you. When businesses have more money, employees make more money. When employees make more money, they spend money local community, and that sales tax stays in that community.
The absence of entropy on capital. Like this is something the government can't even have a discussion about. Our goal should be local governance to prevent the entropy of capital. So entropy is a constant in nature. Everything declines across time. Order becomes disorder. Quantity becomes negative. But what you can do, and it's a permaculture principle, is slow entropy. You can't stop it. So capital entropy is when your capital leaves your local area. And the longer you can hold it and rebound it, the more your local economy can thrive. So that's like the sales tax issue that he's talking about is dead on. Like, as much as I hate it, at least it reduces the entropy of capital.
Look at Walmart's a good example right now, right? There a lot of them, their electronics aisle is being compressed to 2 aisles. Everything's food, and all this impulse buy stuff is smaller now. Yeah. So people are spending less and less money on that sales tax that goes into the community. So what's happening here locally? The Tennessee State Troopers are in here ridiculously heavy for weeks now, harassing the working man, pulling them over 2-3 cars at a time. Your local government requests Tennessee State Troopers to come here, and over 40% of that revenue from those tickets stays in the local community. Driving past the local police department yesterday, day before, they have 10 brand new police cars. Who pays for those police cars? You do. They weren't given those police cars. If you're in a tiny community, impoverished community, and they got brand new police cars, it comes from tickets. And the same thing happens harassing all this diesel truck owners, right? They're looking for farm fuel so they can tax you and hit you with EPA fines.
And I mean, let's be honest. Some of these, like the way they outfit these cruisers now, these are $80,000 to $120,000 vehicles these cops are driving around. The vehicle's worth more than the cop's salary, and it's all coming from tickets. We have a little town here called Lakeside. You have to drive through to get to Fort Worth. They have like 7 cops and 1,300 people.
Yes,
you don't need 7 cops to police 1,300 people. Where I grew up, we had a township cop, one that policed the entire township. And if something went on when he was unavailable, then they brought the state. But it was like a reactionary thing. These people down here were writing tickets non-frickin' stop, set up. They got a new chief in, and on our next door, the chief weighed in on something. And I said, you guys are writing tickets to pay your bills. And he got very offended, but he also said, I'll look into it. And I got to give the man credit. Like, it was like a month later, that shit stopped. That was like 5 years ago. And it's not come back. And I think he laid a couple officers off. But what they're doing now, they're patrolling the state highway and they're nailing people out there. But at least they're not hitting the guy that's on his way home from work, doing 41 in a 35 on a downhill, hidden in a. I mean, that's what they were doing. One of the speed traps they got my father-in-law years ago was a school zone. And they had 2 school zones, and there was about 20 yards between the school zones. So he's an older guy. He's driving along school zone, slows all the way. There's no kids anywhere near this place. Slows down, sees end school zone, speeds back up, and the guy sitting in the second zone knows exactly what he's doing. But that's the whole thing, that they're told to go out and get revenue. My brother-in-law is a cop, and he told me that, like, sometimes you'll see us out on the highway. We're not even really supposed to be there. That's supposed to be the Stadies. And you'll see on a weekend, you'll see them just writing tickets. There's one dude on an overpass with a radar gun, and there's 12 cops lined up, and they're, like, calling them in one at a time, and they're plucking them left and right. And he said, you know what that is? Those guys want overtime, and that's the only way they can get overtime. All of this is just rape harvest of, it's basically like a penalty tax is what it is. It's like a different kind of a sin tax. We're saying, if you make the business prosperous, if you make the town prosperous, you don't need to do this. But then we wouldn't need them. Then we wouldn't need them. And see, that's a problem. Never forget, government is an organism that seeks to survive and thrive and grow. And so it doesn't have to be that every single person in government is like a conniving bastard going, how do we do this, right? Like Pelosi during the Trump speech with the what was this thing, the fly rubbing? Like, it's not all that. It's that the system itself is set up to create this outcome.
Yeah, we've got a speed zone that goes from 55 to 35. There's a town up the way that has a speed zone that goes from 55 to 22. What the fuck is 22 miles? What, did they buy that sign cheaper because it was a misprint? 22 miles an hour. It is absolutely insane.
Is there a school there or something?
I have no idea. Our cops come on here, and now we have city and county. Like, there's a difference. I am not in the city, but I do go occasionally into the city, which is just a mile up the road here. Now, our cops come on, work a year or two, and then get stolen from either of the other counties, which immediately pay them $25,000 more per year. Our county is just, it's a mess. It's great to live here, but when you really start looking at what's going on, there is a lot of mismanagement.
There's mismanagement everywhere. All these speed traps. Remember the show that they canceled like 30 years after it was off the air, Dukes of Hazzard? Remember Roscoe P. Coltrane? He had the sign and it said 55 miles an hour. And when the car came by, he pushed a button and it flipped over and it changed it to 35. It's almost that bad at this point. Like, that was a joke in 1982, and it's fucking reality in 2023.
Yeah. We had a task force rousting dudes in Dixon, and that was actually the FBI actually came in. They were doing asset forfeiture and just stealing people's money and impounding vehicles left and right. And that actually became quite a politicized. It was very public when that happened. A bunch of people actually ended up going to jail over that.
I hate to say his name because if we say it 3 times, he'll show up and start asking questions. But Jake Robinson did some ride-alongs in Tennessee. He's from your neck of the woods, and he was talking about how they're running these stings with the guys running dope. And he said they had kind of an archetype. You'd have like a young girl, an older dude, late model car, cruising, but they knew which way they were taking the dope. Yep. And they knew which way they were coming back with the money. And they only policed whichever direction it was going through Tennessee on 40. They only policed the direction where they had the money, never where they had the drugs. Because if he sees the drugs, I'm sure some of that ends up back on the market, I'll just say. Like, there's corruption everywhere. But if he sees the money, well, you have the money.
Yep.
Right? So they're pulling people over. You got $26,000 in your car. Well, why do you have it? You can't give a good answer. We're just going to take, even if they didn't get charged, they were just taking the money. And he said the cops he was talking to felt there was nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this.
Well, there's a lot of videos where they actually are incentivized. They get a percentage of some of that money. It's been busted out several times where it's gone to court. And even if you go to court and you win the asset forfeiture, right? They don't cover your law fees, right? They make it is just enough that it costs you more to get your money back than the money is worth.
Yep. Okay, let's change to something completely different from Evan Dixon. Yeah. Can you guys share some insights on leaving the paycheck plantation and becoming a full-time entrepreneur? Mindset shifts. I can say that when I broke away from a more secure job into working, like just being exclusively working for myself, it was a very hard journey from a mindset standpoint, because I had limiting beliefs on how much money I thought I could make, first of all. And so something as simple as raising $3,500 to buy my first commercial coffee roaster seemed impossible when I looked at that. And I had to ask myself, how can I make this possible? And it was every time I feel myself thinking there's no way I could ever do X, I have to stop myself and say, how can I do X? Like my one right now is I want an endless pool. They're $40,000 to $60,000 new. But I love swimming, and I have now tested a bunch of them. And at this hot minute, I do not, in fact, have $60,000 sitting in an account that I would like to allocate to an endless pool. But I'm not going to sit there, right? I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on, how do I make it so I can build this into my life? How does it become part of my business, perhaps, so that I wipe out the sales tax? Because if I'm using it to earn money, then it's infrastructure for my business. How do I get that amount of wealth in to build this into my everyday life? And what does that look like here long term? And so that's like a selfish thing, right? That's not necessarily business, but it may end up very well being business. You may see me doing coaching next in an endless pool in the Holler Homestead, and building in Homestead Boot Camp, and then end in the spa. It's perfect. It's a perfect end to a long homesteading day. Likewise, at Holler Roast, like John helped me with my Kickstarter for the second roaster, where I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get $5,500. I raised $30,000 to get that done.
We had your first goal that night.
Yeah. Before I launched, I did like this pre-launch to just sort of get some things going before I went full in, so people could see some momentum. Yeah, we hit the goal. I think it was 2 hours, John.
It was, you were after 10 grand. And then I remember a conversation within a few days, you were at 20 grand. And some people on your team were like, okay, we need to cap this. And I said, well, I said some pretty hateful things. I'm like, no, you keep going, and you just, like, that's their problem, not your problem, right? They are going to limit you. They are always going to limit you. So, I mean, and what happened? You capped out at almost close to $30,000, and I made 30. It's delivered. It's done. Like, I mean, everything was perfect. It worked.
Yeah. And the next time I had to buy a roaster, I did not do a Kickstarter. I just bought the roaster because it was built into my business at that point.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so the whole point, though, is there's always a way, and there's always a best way, and there's always a good way, and there's always a shitty way. And you're probably, the first time you take a shot at it, you're going to try the shitty way because you haven't learned yet. So the biggest reason that people don't is they're afraid they're going to fail. Get on with fucking failing. Fail as fast and forward as you possibly can, right? People look at what I did with TSP and they go, in a year and a half, this fucker walked away from a 6-figure income to be a podcaster. Who the fuck does that? The person that failed his fucking ass off for 20 years while working for other people, always trying something different, had a lot of success that then got rugged on it. Like there were months where I made $20,000, $30,000 in a month moving traffic around, selling traffic back to Google with Google AdSense until they completely changed the program. And I had just hit that kind of income. And it went from 30 to 10 to 2 to $100 that fast over that many months, right? So the person that already fucked up and got it done with and had some things they did right and learned in the process is the person that eventually hits that stride like John did, like you did, like I did. So the first thing you do is go out and do it. And then try to learn from people like us. Like, what are your strategies? How do you handle taxes, et cetera? Like, I can tell you right now, if you're going to build a farm business, don't do it with money out of pocket. Borrow the money. It sounds completely against what I teach. I can't get into why, but it's tax. It's tax. If you put the capital in to a farm, you're depreciating it over 30 years or more. If you leverage debt, you're deducting it instantaneously, and it's not out of pocket, right? Like, there's these strategies. Like, I'm talking to Ken Berry right now, and he wants to do something kind of like, all the people in a house, weight loss, carnivore diet, whatever. And I'm like, what you could do, because he's kind of in on the whole community thing too. I'm like, you could build a whole shitload of inexpensive, quick put up tiny houses, call them stage sets or something like that. So they are deductible, unlike a permanent building. Write that off the taxes of the project, and then sell it to yourself for $10 a structure after it's all over with in a different entity, and have an Airbnb compound.
He's got the property to do it too.
And I'm like, I don't know if that'll work the way I said it, but I know if you take that to enough CPAs and tax attorneys, one of them is going to put that shit in a strategy for you where you can do it, and you can write a letter to the president of the goddamn United States and say, this is what I'm doing, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's inside their shit. Anyway, I gotta go in a couple minutes. Yeah. I'll be back.
You'll be back. So Jack's gonna disappear for a little while and be back, John. We'll just keep going.
There's the dogs. That's my alarm system. I got to go unload about a ton of feed right now. I'll be right back though.
Yeah. So Evan, who asked that question, has started a business maybe a year ago.
Killing it.
And he just made more. He just made more this quarter than the entire last since the business been a going concern. And he just keeps scaling and scaling. And I'm actually pulling all kinds of stuff from Evan. We actually speak quite often. And he stood in here and he said, so I'm going to start a business. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably not going to. If you're standing here telling me that you're going to and you haven't, how come you have not? And then he showed up. He actually came and brought radios. He actually came out prior to SRF and sold all of his inventory standing here at a table in my cut room. And he's like, shit, I sold everything. And he was able to get more, came out to SRF, came to the next SRF, and now he's been doing collaborations. He just did the Wrangler Star collaboration. He included us in it. We're building 175 of 2 different products. They're out on the floor right now taking 50% capacity. And he just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the thing is, the first time you make $1,000, now you know you can make $1,000, right? When I switched over for a long time, I'm like, man, our stuff's the best. You want my stuff, you're going to pay me cash and you're going to write me a check, right? Everybody's like credit card, credit card, credit card. It took me 3 years till I set up credit card processing. We did 3 times the highest monthly income ever the first week we took credit cards. Make it easy for people to give you money. And every time you do that shit, you're like, why did I wait so long? And that's the thing. Why did you wait so long? You have this idea. I'm like, man, I want to make $100,000 in a year. And then it's $1 million in a year. And once you make $1 million a year, you're like, how do I make $1 million a month? You just keep going. Once you make your first $1,000 a day, that's the bare minimum. You now know how to do it. You're always going to make $1,000 a day. If I don't make $3,000 in a day, I'm out of business. Like $3,000 a day is the bare minimum just to keep this operation going. That's what I got to make. That's my threshold. When I met with my tax lawyer and my accountant, the accountant said, what's John's threshold that he's comfortable with? She's talking to Amanda. She's like, what do you mean? Well, when the bank account gets to this amount, what's your zero, right? And I remember my friend telling me years and years ago, he's like, $10,000 is my zero. I go, what do you mean? He goes, when I have $10,000 in my bank account, I have no money. Anything beyond that, that's when I have money. That's that reserve. What is your threshold? So what is your threshold? Like, what do you make a day? And the other thing you can have the best job in the world. Go in this weekend and do a bunch more work and see how much more your paycheck is, right? If you make a product that people seek out and want to buy, or you have a service that people seek out and want to buy. We haven't made these LBVs, these vests, right? We haven't made them in years. We just shot some video. We've been building them. They're not even on the website. You want one, you have to jump through hoops. You have to figure out how to get it, right? The average Joe seeing a random viral video has no idea. You got to go through, find my channel, find my website, which it's not really public facing, and you got to send me an email. I have more orders for those vests than I even want to build right now. So I don't need to make it easy, right? So the guys that are getting these vests, they really want them. My point to that is they're $1,000 a piece. Amanda and I can sit in here on a Saturday and Sunday and probably kick out 12 of those. That's $12,000. I can spend my weekend and earn another $12,000. Can you do that at your awesome job? So if you have something you love to do, figure out how to turn that into work. I'm not telling you quit your job, but Evan, who sent me the screenshot, and it was a big number. I was surprised what the revenue was. He showed that to his father, and you know what his dad said? But what are you going to do about medical insurance? like Evan could pay the rest of his life's medical insurance with that revenue that he showed me in that screenshot. Like people are just stuck in that system. When things are good, people are going to be like, oh, you don't want to leave your job, man. Things are good right now. When things are bad, oh, you don't want to lose that job. You might not be able to get another one. These are people who have been programmed, and nobody wants you to do better than they are doing. It is, and I don't think that his father meant ill. They are just fucking programmed. Just like those are NPCs. Those are non-player characters. When you walk up to somebody out in public, how you doing? Oh, fair to middling. Oh, I'm here. Oh, I guess. I mean, I'd rather be at home, not at work. I'm like, I can fire you right now. Like if you were my employee, you wouldn't work here. Like I've walked into places and literally fired people at places that I don't own. It's just mindset.
We were talking about how we're programmed, and a very successful piece of programming that happened post World War II was associating your health insurance with your job and then making that defined as healthcare, which is where that comes from. And I hear that story and I know how much health insurance costs because I've been responsible for mine my whole life. And I haven't loved what happened to that number after Obamacare was passed, but it is what it is. And if I want to cover some potential catastrophic things, I build that expense into my life. But there are so many ways that you can handle that one little issue. And having a lot of money really, really helps if you get very, very sick. The health insurance at your job isn't going to cover it. Having a lot of money helps. So, I will say this. I've thought a lot about limiting beliefs this year because as much as I seek to let go of them, I keep finding them in myself. And John, starting 75 hard a little over a month ago has totally changed my perspective. And it has nothing to do with the fitness part or the diet part or any of the individual pieces, right? I mean, I do feel physically better now than I did, but it is the thing that's been best for me is prioritizing myself so I'm strong, so I can be strong for building what I want to build here. And that discipline piece, which was my original motivation for it. For those of you who've not heard of 75 Strong, it's Andy Frisella is his last name. He used it to change his life, and it's just a program where he spends 75 days following a diet, exercising for 45 minutes twice a day, reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book, drinking a gallon of water, and taking a progress picture. That's how it starts. And you can go to his website and sign up for his email, and you sort of get these, daily or every other day reminders. I had no idea how much I would change even in the last 30 days. And I'm not even halfway done with the challenge yet, but I know I'm not going to fail because the brilliance is, well, now I'm at this day. So if I fail one day, I have to start back at day one. And that means I've wasted a whole month of my life if I do that. So
yep. It's also,
go ahead.
Follow a diet, any diet, 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes. One has to be outside. Whether rain or shine or snow, one has to be outside.
Or hot AF.
Andy Frisella created 75 Hard for its mental toughness. He will tell you that over and over. And he's got a podcast. He did a podcast. It was the #1 on business development and entrepreneurship for like 4 years straight on iTunes and all platforms. It was called The Motherfucking CEO, the MF CEO. There's 360 episodes. He now does one called Real AF, which is real as fuck. And it's more political and cruise the internet, but there's nuggets in all of those.
Yeah.
And every single person that I do business with, I want to listen to that podcast. And if you like, guys are like, and there's people are just weak. They are fragile. And they're like, I can't listen to him. I can't do business with you. Like if you can't listen to Andy Frisella, it's because you are fragile, and you more than anybody else need to listen to that podcast because there is pieces in there that are life changers. I send that podcast every couple times a week. I send that out to 20 or so different people. When people don't interact with the things I send them, you go off the list. I have a group of people that we interact with, and I do more and more and more business with those people. So if you get some forward from me, and you don't reply to it, you just fall off my radar. You no longer participate in that group. But doing business with guys like that, they introduce you to higher levels of people. Like, I don't personally know Andy Frisella, but I have a friend who does business with Andy. He is partners up with Andy, and they have these business accelerator groups and these coaching groups that are out there. And you would do good to join those things if you have some kind of business, simply because it gives you access to other people in those networks. Andy has a group called Arate Syndicate. He is partnered up with Ed Milet on that. My friend Rob, he's got a group. There's a bunch of these guys, and they all run in circles, and it is a very small circle.
Yeah, and I'll show you this one. This one is a recent podcast episode, 526. I was listening to it while I was rowing yesterday. Compromises in business. So they talk about the 3 things that they never compromise in business for success. That was super tangible, super helpful for me to listen to, worth investing the time. It's like an hour-long podcast. Just listen to it. If you can listen to us, you can listen to his podcast as well. And that's at andyfrisella.com, or you can look Real AF. It's Real Space AF on your podcatcher, and it will download it.
Yep.
So
the one I was listening to this morning, these 3 compromises will destroy your business.
That
also
one,
with
yeah.
Alex Hormozy. I was listening to that at 5:00 this morning.
Yeah, it was. I have 15 minutes left, but it was definitely worth the time. So I joined and talked to them at Real AF Podcast. It's worth the money. John's memberships is worth the money too on YouTube, guys. And if you're here on YouTube and not a member, maybe consider paying that $1 a month. It's $1, right?
Yeah,
it's just $12 a year.
It weeds out the shit talkers. It's really what it's for. It's $1.
Yep. Okay. Any advice for finding better employees? I'm a home remodeler in Missouri. I love your employee device.
Yeah, I don't know. You should watch my help wanted or job hiring videos. I literally try to talk people out of coming here. I don't even, we get all these people that jump on and they're like, well, you didn't even give the address. If you're not smart enough to find the address here, you could not breathe the same air. My breath exhaling would literally kill you. You are too fragile.
Yeah. We do put the address at selfreliancefestival.com though, because that was my number one question when we didn't have it on that website. And I decided
we have a Google page. Like if a dude can't figure out to Google the company and see where the property is, we don't have anything more to speak about. Like if you don't have the follow through, I need self-starters, right? I need people that do certain aspects better than I do. That's why I'm hiring them.
Yep. Okay.
I have to say, I interviewed a lot of people back in the day when I had a normal corporate gig. I never had somebody ask me where it was. I did have people like when we were in the 4th floor of a building, like, is there a building like security procedure or something? But I never had said, how do I get to where you are? And if I had, John's response would have been my response. You're not qualified to work here. The stupidest thing I ever had a person do, apply for a job, didn't get the job, turn around and sued our company, and then put me down as a reference for a job 3 months later. That was gorgeous. That was like, oh, this.
You're like, yes, I would love to give a reference on this person.
Like, here.
Here's a piece of hiring advice, right? Hey, where did you used to work? Well, I worked over here, but I quit, right? My boss was an asshole, or they didn't like, if the guy's complaining at his last job, you're the next guy he's complaining about. Like, never hire them. If they had a lawsuit against the other company, we're never hiring those people, right? Just if they come in positive, they're smiling, they can demonstrate that they can achieve the task, watch them. Like, I don't even need to know a guy's name for 90 days when he's been here. When my other guys have given the guy a nickname, I will eventually know your name, because you can come in and do everything it takes to get the job, but most people do not excel beyond that. They will do the bare minimum while you're standing. If I demonstrate how to light this lighter, and you can stand there and duplicate how to light this lighter, and I don't light this lighter but once every month, and your job is just to stand there, I expect you to be able to do it much faster on the second day and the third day and the fourth day. We literally had a kid come in here and like we burn threads. Like this is a tool that we use every day.
They do light lighters there.
We had a kid show up here who could not light this lighter. He was trying to throw the fire out. Like, I'm like, where have you been for how old? You're 32. How can you not light this lighter? I go, did you live in your, like, you play video? He goes, yeah, I play video games. I'm like, what was your last job?
Should fucking work then.
I was a sandwich artist. I'm like, what in the fuck is a sandwich? He worked at Subway.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
But he
They
couldn't.
call them sandwich artists there.
Yeah.
And he came to work the next day with Band-Aids around all his fingers. I'm like, yeah, this
You're
is
not going
like,
to make it.
He lasted.
John is talking about FNG theory. I'm sure you know what that is, John.
Fucking new guy.
Fucking new guy. You don't get attached to him for the first 90 days because he's probably going to get himself killed. Right?
Like, we used to take all of my guys, especially guys that would move here, right? The women all have families for the most part. The guys that moved here, they watched all the videos, and we had 2 guys at separate times pack up what they could fit in their car and drive here from Alaska, right? So, like, we took care of these guys. I bought them the same clothes I had. We took them to dinner every night. We would sit and go to the movies together, right? And every time something would go bad, I would realize how much time and energy I invested into these guys, and it would literally crush me when it didn't work out. So I have some demarcation. Like, you have to be here at least 90 days before we're even going to be friendly, right? It's just very factual. If you're super nice on the first day, then that's the bar you set, right? You have to demonstrate what you want, have them demonstrate back to you what you want, and just keep some separation for a while. Especially, and in a small owned business, you're working very close to people. So they'll come in and do what it takes to get that job, but that will fast change. And if you're coming to work every day, the business that you own, and you're dreading going to work because of the employee that's there, the day you fire that guy, you'll be like, man, why did I wait so long?
Yeah. Yeah. My theory is if you've worked for me for 30 days and I can't put a new person with you to train them, you're fired. Because you're never going to make it. You can't teach what you've been doing for 4 weeks to somebody that's new. Because whatever you were doing wasn't that hard. Or you wouldn't have got the job at an entry-level position in the first place. You should be able to do it tomorrow. Like today, I should be able to bring someone the next day and say, show them how your station works in one day. Maybe it's not perfect. I'd wait 30 because that way you kind of QA them and make sure they're doing it right so they're not teaching wrong. Because teaching wrong is terrible because now I can't blame the new guy because he was taught improperly. But in 30 days, if I can't put you in charge of somebody for a couple hours of training, you're fired. You're instantly fired. I love that you can't find us. You're not getting a job part that John does too. Like you can't figure out where we're at. You're fired. My other thing is fire quickly, fire fast. That's what I put when I first walked back in here. I remember when Brian Black started his company and he started finally hiring people. And it was right about the time I kind of connected with Gary Vaynerchuk. And we had a private, like 20 people from the audience, just us and Gary. And I knew Brian had this problem with this employee for a couple weeks. And so he was able to go to his employee and go, I fired you because Gary Vaynerchuk said I needed to. Right. But he said, I said, Gary, when should he have fired him? He said, well, when did he hire him? I'm like 14 days ago. He says, probably 13 days ago from what you're telling me. Like that is one of the things from Gary that stuck with me. You get rid of problems as quickly as you can. And so if you're going to start a business, my other thing, if you're going to have employees, be in a state like Tennessee or Texas or something like that, where it's right to work. And the only explanation I have to give as to why you're fired is because you don't work here anymore.
Yeah,
right to hire. That's the entire explanation. Why are you fired? Because you don't work here anymore.
Yeah,
right. I don't have to, now if you've been in there long enough where they can draw workers' comp and all, it can affect your workers' compensation insurance. But a guy under 90 days, I don't have to do shit. I don't have to write them up. I just buy. You don't work here anymore.
Yep. I give a farm tool test when hiring a farmhand. Good idea.
Yeah,
go get the shovel.
Yeah. Do you know a crescent wrench? Do you know the difference between diesel and gasoline?
Yeah, Jack needs to do that one next time he hires a farmhand.
There it is. His excuse was he was colorblind. So
yeah.
Can you read? Yeah, then you should have read diesel. He thought diesel meant high test gas, like super.
Now a number of gas stations have the green nozzle as normal gas, and the black one is diesel. They switched it.
Boy,
So I actually literally almost made that mistake, and I was like, oh. Ooh.
And when your farmhand puts farm diesel in your street truck and you get stopped for it, your farmhand isn't paying the $10,000 fine. You are.
Yeah, for the red dye diesel, definitely. Yeah. My David mind now, Nicole, that you said that, is thinking about the fact, how because people are stupid and they leave the thing in the truck and they pull out and it has a breakaway for the nozzles, that if you were a real bastard, you could swap the nozzles on one of them. Be careful of that, I guess, because there's people who would do it. I'll tell you another thing you have to be careful of. I've seen a couple times now, and fortunately the one time I didn't catch it, I didn't pull the thing out in my direction. What people are doing now, just to be dicks, you know how when you're pumping gas, you can lock the gas pump on? They're locking it when they put it back in the pump. So when you flip the thing to turn the pump on, it starts shooting gas out. I've seen that like 3 times now.
Wow.
And that's just probably something some jackass came up with in 4chan or something. Who knows?
Yeah. We talked about 75 hard while you were gone. So they're talking about their trick. I had to take a picture in the morning. The one time I almost failed, I was going to bed. I'm like, wait, I haven't taken a picture, and I had to jump back out and take a picture. Yeah.
I just did my workout for the day. 40 bags, 50 pounds.
Farm fit.
Yeah.
We call that farm fit. One of my workouts was wheelbarrowing wood chips up the hill, and I ended up doing it for about an hour. I was like, my heart rate's up. This counts.
Especially your hills, right?
My hills. It's my hills. Yeah.
When I was my place in Arkansas, we built a lot out of rock, and I was smart enough to know I always took the wheelbarrow up the road to pick scrap rock up instead of down the road. So when the wheelbarrow was full, I was just resisting it coming down the hill instead of shoving it up the hill.
I saw a thing yesterday that they have a motor that goes on the wheel of a wheelbarrow now. So you've got an electric motor that drives that thing.
Neat.
You know what? As much as I want to mock that in certain terrain, that would be badass, actually. Sure. And my advice to everybody out here when it comes to wheelbarrows, if you have hilly terrain, you want 2 wheels, screw that one wheel shit, and you can have a wheelbarrow kick out, and I mean it can fracture a leg. And buy the best wheelbarrow you can get. They don't make wheelbarrows worth a shit anymore. I'm actually thinking about going down the fabrication shop down here and having them make me a freaking wheelbarrow, like weld me a serious badass with steel wheels wheelbarrow.
Yeah, I get super butthurt about the fact that my wheelbarrows die so quickly, but I am all about the 2 wheels here. And the other rednecks look at me funny. They have this bigger one with 1 wheel. I'm like, nope, this one. Lightweight, 2 wheels. I throw stuff in it. I can get it up the hill. I'm not trying to keep it on a sideways thing from flipping over.
Yeah.
That's a motorized wheelbarrow there.
That's pretty badass. I built a really great trailer for my tractor, a little lawn tractor.
Yeah.
And I've loaded it to where it lifts the tractor up in the trailer. I mean, literally, like if you get enough weight on it, because it's just a little lawn tractor, a little John Deere, it'll lift up the rear wheel. Like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, we've got pull behind trailers and carts for the 4-wheelers. We've got big metal trailers that the 4-wheelers pull, and then we have plastic dump carts for manure and soil and stuff like that. But you don't want to throw a bunch of rock into that plastic one. But they work great. We spent the first 18 months on this property doing everything by hand because there was no tractor. But it's a give and a take. Once you are able to have equipment, it's like a bulldozer, right? It's expensive to rent a bulldozer, but you can do as much work in one day as it takes you 6 months to do by hand. Yeah. So it's a force multiplier. I don't pick up rail ties anymore and put them on my shoulder and move them. I pick them up with an excavator and stack them neatly. Everything that comes into place now, I put on pallets and I use forks to move it where I need. And then I can stack it vertically and use less footprint also. And anytime I'm buying materials, bags of soil, for instance, I try to buy an entire pallet so that they will put it on the flatbed and then I can unload it. It's just people typically don't add in their time, right? What does it cost to unload this thing if I'm paying myself even minimum wage? A lot of people, when they start a business, don't even consider their time at minimum wage, much less what they actually make.
You bring up a good point too. Like when you're talking about carrying railroad ties and shit, when you're young, I mean, obviously all 3 of us are advocates of being willing to work hard and physically hard as part of that. there's also things that if you do it, it damages your body long term. When you said that, I remembered for my father-in-law carrying like 20 railroad ties over my shoulder like a log, one at a time in his rickety-ass backyard. And what I should have done is run down to Home Depot and hire 2 day laborers to do it for me, right? I mean, that's what I should have, because there was nobody else to do it. It wasn't like I had somebody I could reach out to help me on that time. And he was at a point in his life where I'm like, if he tries to help me, it's going to be worse. So I just went and did it. But like that solution was right. There was a Home Depot that guys lined up to work at every day. I could have went down there and handed 2 guys a $20 bill a piece, rolled them over, had them do it, rolled them back. They could have got back in line, and it would have been $40. Yeah. And there's probably still parts of my body today that ache because I did that. I mean,
at 52, right? The things we did as a kid, you reach down to pick a pencil, you throw your back out. I've never had that happen, luckily. But it's in my head. I say that all the time. It's not the zombies or the gunfight or the fighter jets, the drone that's going to kill me. It's going to be that giant sliver that I get in my finger that gets infected off of a rail tie, or I'm going to, break an ankle or something, a compound fracture. So it just comes down to how much, like, I don't have to have 2 dudes here now to move rail ties. I can do it on a weekend in 15 minutes and have them all stacked neatly.
Better living through engineering and chemistry.
Yeah, it's a force multiplier.
That's, like people, well, you're going to use that chemical? Yes.
Yeah, it's like
people actually are like, they're freaked out that I use orange oil to kill ants.
Oh, I need to order more of that.
It doesn't kill much else. So yes, it's chemistry. It works. It has an exoskeleton. I put orange oil on it. It melts and it dies.
Awesome. Yeah. Orange oil is actually hard to find. Like, you used to be able to just get it off Amazon. It's very hard to get in bulk now. But it's like that suit that Sigourney Weaver had to throw the alien out of the spacecraft. It's like having a gym suit. That's what a skid steer and an excavator is, man. It's just a force multiplier.
Yeah. And we were talking a lot about business earlier, so that's part of it too. Don't be afraid to spend money inside your business. Just know why. Don't spend it just to spend it. Right. The last thing you should do is go to a marketing firm and hand them $40,000 and tell them to develop messaging and marketing for your company, because they're not going to do a good job. They're not going to do a good job.
Take care of your
throw your money away before you do that. You put it in a bank. You're better off. And you know how I feel about banks. And I'm still saying put it in the bank before you give it to a marketing firm. Like, that's not how you build a company. Like, invest in your infrastructure, invest in your systems.
Take care of your customer. Like, service your customer 110%, and they're going to continue to talk about you and tell your story. You can bring in all the marketing and get all the first-time customers in the world. When you fall short, they're going to tell the negative story, and that's going to do more damage. It's going to negate. It is faster to have one loyal customer because they will continue to buy. It is better to resell and upsell to your existing customers and let them tell your story.
Yep. Right. Are we done with the rabbit question? I think
so. Somebody said, how do we get rid of rabbits in towns? They've killed a bunch of his fruit trees.
Oh, you trap them
cloth around the tree. That's all you got to do. Just some hardware cloth around the tree, and the rabbit can't get to it. You don't want a dead rabbit. You want a living tree.
Live catch trap the rabbits, or BB gun shoot them and feed them to your dogs. My dog's diet is at least 75% whole dead rabbit.
We finally got there. The dogs are finally starting to eat rabbit this week.
So if anybody has a dog and they say their dog won't eat the rabbit, take a pair of garden shears. I use just normal shears, like the same scissors we cut material with. On that dead rabbit, just cut that belly, expose that gut. The dogs will eat it every time. And then you will only be a week or 2 of that, and you won't have to cut the rabbit open anymore.
So I love this comment from STOS. I have a top customer list. Those MFers get a Christmas card. Great idea. Totally stealing that idea now.
You want a better idea?
Yes.
Everybody sends Christmas cards. So this goes back to my sales days.
Yeah.
I would get to know my contacts and know what was like most important to them, and I would send them a card for something like that. So a guy that was like really a proud father, I'd send him a Father's Day card. A woman who was a really proud mother, I sent her a Mother's Day card. Something like that. Something outside of the box of what everybody else does. Especially now, small personal business, that probably matters. But if you get into like corporate to corporate, you're dealing with other contacts inside large companies and stuff. Those people, the purchasing managers and shit, lead engineers and all, they get a stack of Christmas cards every year. So it falls into an expectation. But if you take something unique to them, right? Or if you know that the person is really into fishing and you come across some really cool information, just an email that says, hey man, I thought you'd like this article. Like that's relationship building that's actually personal, that's tailored to the person instead of a generic format, because there's services now where you literally don't even have to touch a card. You pick out a card to design. They'll even do a font in your handwriting, and it's all print on demand and sent out for you. You never even have to look at it. So it becomes very impersonal. But if you take the approach of, if you have an important contact in your business, you should know 4 or 5 things about them that the average person that even knows them doesn't. And that takes an investment in the relationship. But once you have that, you're always at the top of the mind when something might apply to you.
Yep.
Here's what we did, and we got this from Andy Frisella. He owns First Form Nutrition. When you order from First Form Nutrition, each order comes with your invoice or your packing slip, and there's a handwritten note. And what we did is I was personally shipping, so I would use your name. Hey, Bob, thank you for your 17th order. I would name how many orders, right? So something that you've actually looked up, they know you've looked up. I'd say something funny. Hey, I hope you really love this big black cock you ordered, because we make a little chicken called the cocks, right? The combat cock. I hope you never have to use this tourniquet, but thank you for choosing my tourniquet pouch to hold your tourniquet. So 3 sentences, 1 funny, 1 serious, and 1, with some facts in there. And we got tons and tons of replies. And what we would do is through the shipping, we would go from the shipping software to the actual shopping software. So we would know how many orders they had. When they ordered 10 orders, and I got this from First Form Nutrition also, at 10 orders, we had cards made up, and we would handwrite, hey, thank you for your 10th order. Here is 20% of your order in a gift card. You have 72 hours to spend this. Thank you for being a loyal customer. And we would handwrite that. That went in a black envelope signed with a silver Sharpie and hand addressed to the customer. So it came through the mail separate from the order. What we found is they spent it within 72 hours, and they always bought way more than we actually gift carded them.
Yeah. See, and that's just the way you got there, though, is you ran your business and then you saw the opportunity within your business. It wasn't like you had to come up with that idea and then you could start a business, right? Like the thing we talked about years ago, and we probably do a show on again, the toolbox fallacy. I need this thing before I can do this other thing. Like, go do something. I mean, but on the other side, like, do think about, like, well, what does it grow up to become? So there's side hustles, and there's side hustles that are transitional. So, like, you could, like, I can look around and see opportunity everywhere. I know all of you guys can, right? Like, that's just when you get in that entrepreneur mindset. But I drive around here through the neighborhoods, and I see, like, all these busted ass fences, and I'm like, I could literally, with a $500 spray applicator, walk door to door and just seal fences and could make a few $1,000s a week. Okay, that's a great side hustle. But what does that business look like if it grows up? It has to diversify into other things. It requires employees. It's going to require dispatch. It's going to require insurance. If you want to build a business like that, that's fine. But if you're going to scale it, it requires that. If you don't want to scale a business in that manner, then it might be your side hustle, but your long-term happiness business is something totally different. You could go from being, I don't know, a dude that's a COO of a company with 2,500 contractors around the world to a guy that's a one-man show with a microphone because you hate what you're doing elsewhere, right? That's me, for those that don't know my backstory, right? Like, I hate that. So when I decided I wanted to do something different, I didn't want to replicate that. So it is important that when you decide to anchor down and really build, that you're thinking about, what does this business look like in a year, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, right? And make sure that's what you want to commit yourself to. Think of it like marrying somebody, right? It's an easier divorce to get because you sell the business, but you need to be thinking that way because you can end up with a business that's just a job and you hate it just as much as a job, and you're more trapped because now you've been working it for, let's say, 5 years and nobody wants to hire you back as an employee now because you're too strong-minded, right? I mean, I don't even think I'm employable right now. I don't think anybody could hire me. I don't think it's possible. Like, it'd be like 5 minutes of like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not doing this.
Well,
like,
you don't need to be.
You asked before you took your break. Oh,
because you have options. People that it's because you have options. People that say they can't do something, it's because they've never looked at their options. That's how that is. And along the lines of that whole gift card thing, if you're doing any shipping and you hire other people to do your shipping, nobody's going to care about your company like you care about your company. We had a shipping guy that quit at the same time, and I was doing shipping for 2 weeks. And what I found was I had customers I noticed that I was shipping to every single day, and I didn't know their name. So when I start looking at their history, these guys had 200 orders. We had guys with 1,000 orders. We had $20,000 customers. I have $100,000 customers, and I didn't know that they existed. And my shipping guy never goes, hey, who is this guy? Are you aware of this, right? I didn't know to ask the question. He never thought, hey, we ship to this dude every single day. The other thing is, if you're in business and you don't know what the term SMS means, you're not really in business. And what that is, it's your text app. I maintain, right now I'm at about $90,000 $90,000 on my direct email. We send out an email 3 times a week. My text message app sits at about 3,500. Everything we sell is almost always sold out from the text before it ever gets to the email. Those 3,500 are a much greater revenue than that 90,000 list, because you have direct access to your customers on SMS, whereas on email, it actually is an algorithm. So if a guy typically doesn't open your email, all those free email apps say, oh, this is a spammer, and it goes into the other mailbox or the junk mailbox. People have no idea. It's very, very simple. If you took just those things that I just said right now, you would scale the day, the first week we put SMS in, and we only had a couple hundred people on our SMS list, our revenue went up 36%.
Yeah,
That's
I'll say like
great.
the SMS thing, if you're more of like an influencer type business where you don't generally get access to your customers' phone numbers, set up a Telegram channel, and it effectively gives you the same thing. All your customer, your contact has to do is subscribe to it, and they don't have to, like with a group, deal with all the other stuff coming in. We have a really active Telegram group, but we also have a channel, and most of the people on that, they just want to hear from the brand. And so unlike Twitter, where there's an algorithm, unless they mute you, when they pick their phone up, you're there. And it's much more personal than an email. People, even though it's still mass produced, it's different in the mindset of somebody. Oh, this is a Telegram, and they can answer it if they want to. I guess you can do that with an email, but I mean, I get a hell of a lot more leverage from a couple thousand. Same thing. I've got tens of thousands of people on an email list, and a few thousand on my Telegram channel, and I get much quicker response from the Telegram announcements, and I get more from the channel than the group, because the group's a bunch of people talking to each other. They get tired. The channel is just me. So maybe 3 or 4 things a day go out on that, and I get great response from that.
We did a 1 hour. We sent the text out an hour before we sent the email out. And that's how we grew that list up so quickly. We had to stop doing that. It goes out 10 to 15 minutes early because everything was gone before the email ever went out.
Yep. So Renegade Butcher says, I've probably sold more directly interacting with people on Nostr than any other single avenue. I was on Nostr for 2 days before I sold my first coffee there. It was super fast because that community is enthusiastic about making that marketplace work. So they'll just do it. Like I sold a coffee of the month for a year, which is like a $350 item off somebody who had ordered through my website before, who's like, I just want to do this on Nostr. And it's still a little clunky, but don't hate money.
It is the early days of Bitcoin. When you started accepting Bitcoin, you got orders from people that didn't even really care about what they were buying. They just, oh, you're a guy that actually supports Bitcoin. I'll spend Bitcoin with you. And it's kind of that again with Nostr. And that is what it is. Nostr people are looking to do business with other Nostr people. Like it's a goal. Like if I'm going to buy a thing and I can buy it from somebody on Nostr instead of someplace else, I'll do it. And yeah, that it's been incredibly responsive, and it takes a little effort to get started with it. But once you do, it's no different than using Twitter.
Yeah,
it really isn't. I mean, if you can use Twitter, if you can use Facebook, you can use freaking Nostr. Just once you have your client configured, you're done. I'm sure somebody in this audience, out of the 3 of our audiences, would help you with it for money if you really can't figure it out. But if you were to go to nostr.how, nostr.how, you would figure it out. Yep. It's not that hard. Even Ken Berry did it. Ken Berry managed to get on that. He's a Gen Xer like us, a couple of years older than us, but it's the most boomer, non-configured profile I've ever seen in my life. But he did manage to get on there. So if Ken Berry, technophobe, can do it on his own without help from his wife, everybody listening to us right now, you could be on Nostr today.
It's so easy. And I too put it off for like 3 weeks after I discovered it because I was like, I'm busy with Self-Reliance Festival and it's March. And then Self-Reliance Festival was over and I'm like, today is the day. I'm about to talk to Jack on the first Tuesday chat. He's going to give me crap about not being on Nostr. And I was like, I wonder how I do this. And Renegade Butcher and Brian from the Lots Project are on a private chat with me on Telegram. I'm like, guys, I got to get this done the right way and I don't want to mess it up. And they're like, here, we made a 5-minute video, step-by-step tutorial. Done. Yeah. Here, put all these relays in. Yeah. That was a little harder, but not that hard. And then when Jack gave me crap about it, I'm like, I am on Nostr.
That's odd. When I got on it, I didn't even know what a relay was other than in theory. And I'm like, settings, I'd like fucking turn them all on and see what happens. You know, I'm like, oh, a bunch of spam showed up. Let me turn them back off and start turning And it was like, you just play with it. Like, one of the reasons kids are so good on computers is they don't worry about messing anything up. So, like, if you messed up a Nostr profile before you got any traction with it, just generate a new key and a new pair and done. And don't throw it away. Don't worry about it. Like, it ain't a Bitcoin wallet like you lost money. You know, but here's my thing, my pitch for Nostr again, for everybody out there. It is mostly dominated by Bitcoin people. This is true. It is mostly dominated by experienced Bitcoin people. This is true. You know what? They have money.
Yeah.
They have money. You know what else Nostr has? An integrated payments network, and it's built with a bunch of people that have money. You might want to be part of a network of enthusiastic people that have money with a built-in integrated payments network that's totally private and instantaneous. If you don't, well, then totally don't go on Nostr. If you don't want a network of affluent, energetic, happy, excited, entrepreneurial people, Nostr is not for you right now. But maybe you do want that, right? And one key pair in your tribe's everywhere. No one can ever shut you down.
That's the part I like. I can look at it through any client or app I want to, and it's just like it's the same Nicole.
Yep.
I just post the stuff.
And your people are still there, that you can still reach them. And if it is something specific, like they have a thing called BlogStack now, it hasn't taken off, but there will be other clients that are more specific rather than just Twitter clones. But then the person who you're already connected to, if they start using that particular client for more of a long form blog or whatever else they can, or a marketplace, all your contacts instantly are connected to you as soon as they grab onto that. It's not like Facebook where it says, now spam all your inbox so that everybody knows you have a Facebook account. The people you're connected to are connected to you as long as they want to be.
Yep.
An integrated payments network.
Jack's very excited about the money side.
Yes. I don't hate money. Please stop hating money.
Well, the cool thing is it does facilitate a tipping society. So I put a cool picture of my coffee mug up and I say something about the day and I'll get, a couple hundred sats, which is worth not very much money at all.
No, but it's
a penny or two.
This is my highest paying coffee mug picture that's ever been on Nostr. And for those that are on the audio only, it's a green mug and it says, I am not responsible for what my face does when you talk. This was given to me by a person who knows me well.
Yes, he is not. Also, you don't talk to him until after the first cup is down. Just if you're at this fall workshop. Yeah. But
usually
that adds up over time, and I'm totally like all my sats that I end up getting beyond the ones I also give on Nostr, because you have to also participate by tipping people. Yeah. Totally dedicated to my endless pool.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
My ratio is half of what comes in.
Yeah.
Eventually, when it builds up, gets transferred out to my own node and then ends up on chain secure. And half of anything I get goes back. So I'm like a 50 in, 50 out kind of guy because I don't hate money. And, and the way you can do that in a payments network is you have to provide a lot of value. So you're not just getting tips only because you're giving tips, but because you're putting value out.
Right.
But I would get involved. We lost Johnny ran away.
Oh, he'll be back.
He's back.
He just had to walk around the corner.
PP dance.
Yell at somebody.
Yeah. It's hard to concentrate when you're doing the PP dance. Oh, I see we're selling hollow roast again. That's thanks, 30-day reviews. STOS says the greatest thing ever was being disabled and having to learn how to move things with knowledge, not my body.
Interesting.
Well, and I know, like, I injured my lower back doing a lift wrong at the gym, shoulder to overhead, and I leaned back, and then I should have just let the bar drop, but no, I tried to catch it. Don't do that. So it's important when you're exercising to think about that. But then if you do injure yourself, the exercise you do can make the pain go away. So I've had like low back problems for a long time since then. Started doing Pilates. All of a sudden, my low back doesn't hurt anymore. And that's because they focus on building your core stronger in Pilates, which is like ballet meets yoga. It's kind of what it is. Gotcha. I know it sounds girly, but it's all about core development and, man, flexibility, moving the joints, like, awesome. I'm glad I rediscovered Pilates in my 50s and not in my 70s when I had become more creaky.
Yeah, core strength is important. This weekend, I kind of tweaked my back. It didn't last long, but it really hurt when I did it. And I've been working out for the past couple of months, almost every day, hitting the heavy bag. And that's all about core strength. And it probably would have been worse hadn't I. And it wasn't even something heavy. It was something awkward. I re-aquascaped one of my fish tanks. And it's like a 33 low rimless. So it's long. So it was just odd going out the door and the way I had to contort my body and shit. Because John was right about as you get older, like, I have this theory that somewhere between 42 and 44 for men anyway, your extended warranty wears out and nobody calls and asks you to renew it. It's fucking gone. Like, that's it. Like, shit you can do when you're 30, especially when you're 20, you can like roll down a hill, get hit with a boulder, get up, get run over by a train, break your hand, and 2 days later you're partying, woohoo, right? Like, when you hit your 40s and you have what seems like a pretty mild injury, it can be with you a while. And so take care of yourself. You know, if you're overweight, fix that shit. I can't tell you how much it'll help you. I can't tell you how much it'll change you. I can't tell you how much it'll reverse your metabolic age. Like, and all this stuff we're talking about requires energy and effort. Why the fuck do you think John Willis can get up at 4:30 in the morning and work out and then yell at you on Instagram and TikTok and then get on and do this and then go push his business for the full freaking day and not go to sleep till the sun goes down? Why do you think he can do that? Do you think if John weighed 300 pounds, unless he was like jack 300, like just 300 pounds of fat, do you think John would be doing that? Do you think he'd jump up his ass out of bed and have time to motivate you before he goes and does his own shit? Or do you think it's the fact that he gets up and works out is why he can get up and work out? So there's this attitude people have that like, well, when I fix this part, then I'll fix that part. Fix you first. Fix your health. I've had friends say, I need to get my mind right, and then I'll fix my body. Fix your fucking body, and your mind will get right.
Yep.
Right? I mean, what fucks people up is they lose sight, like long-term horizon. That's not just about building. That's also about hope, right? That's why Michael Saylor says Bitcoin is hope, because it's long-time horizon thinking. When people stop planning their future, they become incredibly depressed. Right. And so many of our people in our audiences, they're finding their greatest comfort in food. That sucks. It seems great while it's going on. And I enjoy a great meal, you know, and a lot of you guys, if you grew up and you had any, you know, that corporate family we're talking about, maybe every Sunday you went to grandma's house after church and you ate a giant thing of food. And that's all great. And the family values are great. But that reinforces in your mind that food is comfort. Food is for celebration. Food is for mourning, right? We have a giant spread of food at a funeral. We have a giant spread of food at a graduation or a confirmation, right? So if you're sad, eat. If you're happy, eat. If you're tired, eat. If you're bored, eat. With no mindset on what's going on. And at least back then when we were eating real food, now we're eating garbage that way. And you can't fix these problems we're talking about until you fix your body.
Fitness is free. I mean, you can make fitness cost as much as you want it to cost, but fitness is free. You can take a man and lock him in a 5x6 jail cell, and he can still work out every day. That's the one thing that you cannot take away from him. So if you're not doing it, you're just not doing it. When I have
some sledgehammer and a truck tire, I mean,
you don't even have to have that. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying, like, if you
take a trash bag and fill it with water, fill it with wet newspaper, fill it with dirt, whatever. Just carry something heavy, do something difficult. And it cleans your mind out. Like, it literally, if you have some solution that you cannot solve, work out. The answer will come to you. It does not work the other way. And everybody's like, I'm not motivated. Yo, you're never going to fucking be motivated. You have to be disciplined. It's about discipline. It's not about motivation. The motivation is fleeting. As soon as you change to the next TikTok, you lost that motivation. It's simply movement. Movement clears the mind.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this weekend, I didn't want to get up and do my first 45-minute workout 3 days in a row. I got up and did it. And by the end of it, I was like, actually, I feel better now.
Yeah.
But there was a moment in bed where I was like,
The days you don't want to work out are usually the best workouts, and that's when you need it the most.
Yeah.
I'm also, and I've become recently big on get up out of bed and work out. The rest of the day is different. And if you aren't, or even like what can happen is you can injure yourself in a way where you really shouldn't do the workout that you most want to do. This weekend, I cut my hand on a glass that attacked me. Like I literally opened the cabinet, went to grab one glass, the other glass came out, smashed it, and cut the back of my hand. I really don't need to be pounding on a heavy bag this week. So I'll walk my farm. I'll walk 2 miles on my farm in the morning until this, because I don't want to have blood everywhere and shit. So give it a couple days to recover. So if you have an injury where you can't do your workout of choice, do something else.
Yeah.
Get up and fucking move.
There's a lot you can do.
When you do difficult things, they get easier.
Ask Nicole. She's in the middle of her 75 hard.
Yeah. It's funny because it's not as hard as I thought it would be.
It's probably less
hard days.
Yeah.
And I think the hard part is like with 75 days, you're going to go through somebody's birthday party where there's cake and you have to say no because you're following a diet with no exceptions, right? And one thing I'm not doing is there's no refined sugar as acceptable on my list. But
no SOE gummy bears.
No SOE gummy bears, man. I got freeze-dried Skittles, but they were a gift for somebody else.
Okay.
So did not eat any of them. And I think, and you're not allowed to have alcohol either at all. And so I hung out with Jack and watched him drink a 007 martini, which would have been my I really want to try that. Good. It looked really good. I had fizzy water with lemon in it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah,
but I think that's part of it. It's like you don't time it for not doing it over Christmas or something. You just do it and go through Christmas. That's the hard part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you had good friends too, because even though it was me and David, we didn't like. He did a little bit because he can't help himself, but we're like, stick with it, man. Stick with the plan.
Yeah.
He gave you a little nudge just because you would have felt left out if he didn't.
I mean, he ordered cheesecake.
Yeah.
And God had my best, my well-being at heart because they were out of cheesecake. That didn't show up with 3. I would have been fine.
I forgot about that. That was great. Yeah, we don't have any. Oh, okay. That makes it easy to say no.
Yeah, well, I was going to say no anyway.
This is the survival podcast channel, right? Survival. If you can't do difficult shit now while the world is easy, how the fuck are you going to survive? Like Nicole's kind of coddles weak people in the beginning, and she wanted to provide chairs. I'm like, this is the Self-Reliance Festival. These chairs are going to take somebody that's going to trip over them and harm them. If you can't manage to stand or bring your own chair, I'm okay with you not being here. Like, it's the Self-Reliance Festival. Maybe you should come here and be uncomfortable and stand, and then you will get less fat. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
You get a stand-up desk or something.
I still bring some chairs, John. I still bring some chairs.
Yeah, I know.
I do provide chairs, but it's because we feed people so well. We need a place for them to sit.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying. And we a lot of times will say, like, man, we kind of overbooked it. Like, if you can bring chairs, You're supposed to be a prepper, be prepared. I remember, like, the first one we ever did were people coming in and asking to borrow towels. Like, you didn't bring a fucking towel. You came to a prepper camp out and you didn't bring a towel. And my wife was like, oh, we can give them towels one time. And she's like, get your own fucking towel.
The first time I stayed inside at your house, I brought towels.
Yeah.
Dorothy's like, here's the towels. I'm like, I have my own towel, Dorothy.
We have a room we call Nicole's room.
I like that room. Okay. Well, we've been going about 2 hours now. We probably should wrap up so John can go kick some ass at his job and produce the top end tactical gear that you can get in this country. And it is some good stuff. Like, I cannot look at a backpack anymore in the store and think I would want to do anything other than buy my day packs from Special Operations Equipment, because it is that much better. So let's go once around the horn, pitch whatever you want to pitch. I'm going to start with you, John.
SOEtacticalgear.com is the website where the real product is. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, MeWe, Locals Float. I'm on YouTube, which I'm broadcasting from right now. So if you click that link, you'll find my stuff. We have a ton of videos. We've got several people on our team doing videos that are going viral all the time. If you watch our shorts, they are very misleading. We build them in that manner because it does inflame people, and people spend more time interacting on negativity. But as a byproduct, it boosts that algorithm, and we find more real people from that. So don't let the shorts fool you. Check out some real stuff. I do a live every night at 9 o'clock. I do a live. We can talk business. We can talk gear, homesteading, whatever you want to talk. You might like some of the things I'm saying. I promise if you like the things I'm saying, eventually I will say something you do not like. But at the end of the day, you will know exactly what I thought. And if you don't like what I do, build your own stuff and do what you like, and the people that agree with you will show up. I've done this for 35 years. So I have advice. If you ask, I will always tell you what I did. I will not ever tell you what you should do. I don't care what you do until you come to me and then tell me what you can't do.
Yep. And you have a chainsaw workshop on June 17th.
We do. We have a badass chainsaw workshop. We've got some great people. We've got companies coming in, bringing in equipment. Whether you run a chainsaw for a living or you've never seen a chainsaw, at the end of the day, you're going to know everything there is to know. And at any level that you want to know it. You can come in here and not even touch any equipment. It's going to be a hangout. The compound will be open for camping Friday night. We're going to feed you, and it's on the website, Chainsaw Workshop.
All right, Jack, what do you got?
Well, I happen to be celebrating something this summer. I have a 15-year anniversary of the Survival Podcast coming up. So we've been doing this show since June the 20th, 2008. And if you like the stuff you heard today and you haven't ever checked us out, please do so. And know that we are incredibly diverse on topics. We'll be talking about permaculture one day, or homesteading or something like that. Next day about how to start a business. The next day we might be talking about like fighting back against government regulation or something like that. Any other alternative energy, you name it. But we do still have some tickets available for our 15-year anniversary celebration. It's going to be at a place called Pinstripes. John, you're invited, but I know you're like super glued by the ass to Tennessee, so you probably won't show up. But it's going to be a really cool 4-hour party. I think we have 21-ish, 22-ish tickets left available to it. They're $80, but it'll be money well spent. We have an hour and a half all-you-can-eat buffet, and it's like ribs on it, not macaroni. Although macaroni and cheese is on it, it's like they said, yeah, we just keep bringing it for an hour and a half. I'm like, all right, you want 75 preppers? That's fine. We'll show you what we can do with some meat. But it's going to be a great time. It's a really great environment. Dorothy did a great job of finding us a good location. I think she likes the giant wine corkscrew that they have there as art out in the front of it. It's just a cool location. We have a private lounge that we've rented for the entire event as well. Really cool kind of upper end industrial setting. And come hang out with us. We did it on a Thursday. So as much as we talked about working today, I believe that human beings are batteries and batteries need recharging. Take off a Thursday and a Friday, have a super long weekend, and kick it off with 75, 80 of the best people you'll ever be around, and come join us. And if you can't do that, at least come check out the Survival Podcast. If you're lazy and you don't want to type the whole thing out, you can put tspc.co into your phone browser or your computer browser, hit go, and you'll end up there. You probably don't think .co works, so you should try it just to find out right now, and make sure you keep coming around.
All right, guys. We do this Tuesday live just about every Tuesday. And this time, my original plan was to share with you something really cool that I put together, which is a homestead starter pack. It's 7 webinars, 1 a week, going through 7 core skills that you will be able to use on the homestead. And that's at NicoleSauce.com. But we also have the Self-Reliance Festival coming, and that's really coming together as being the biggest, best one, October 14th and 15th. That's at selfreliancefestival.com. You can get tickets there for not only the festival, but you can also go to get 2 days early, which means you can start camping as early as Wednesday night and do the Zero to Hero radio operator course from Evan from Radio Made Easy, who was in the comments today. Like, he's really super cool dude. He's also going to have internet available for vendors to buy. We've got a poultry processing class Monday afterwards with Joel Salatin. And then the 2-day tickets, October 14th and 15th, those are all at selfreliancefestival.com. But I also wanted to ask a favor. I told a story earlier in the show about a friend who has cancer who's going to be up to 3 months in the hospital. We are raising money for her. Her name is Jenni Hill. And we put a GoFundMe together. Our goal is to keep her apartment so she can have her apartment rented by the end of that isolation period. We have found somebody to foster her dog so she doesn't have to give up her dog for adoption because she can't have her dog during that time. It's at GoFundMe.com/Jenni-Hill. All of these links, including Jack's event, John's website and his chainsaw event, Self-Reliance Festival, the GoFundMe, those are all in the comments of the YouTube description. So if you want to get straight to these links and you couldn't get to them while we were talking about them, check those out. Definitely follow our channels. We've got the Survival Podcast. We've got SOE Tactical on YouTube, and then I'm Living Free in Tennessee. Give us a follow, a like, a subscribe. Keep up on what we're doing. I think one of the reasons that this Tuesday Live conversation works so well is everybody here, John, Jack, and I, are all interested not only in our own success, but in sharing it openly so that you can be successful too. Because the more successful people we have in our community, the stronger we are, and the world is a better place. So can't wait to talk to you guys next week. See you soon.